Happy Friday morning, everybody. We live. As we proceed, to give you what you need, today's the topic. We're going to talk about these refugees, white refugees coming from South Africa into the United States. And there's a lot that needs to be said on this topic, a lot of things that need to be shared so that people have clarity on what exactly is happening and why. Excuse me, why exactly is happening. And of course, as usual, I'm going to get to the commentary and opinions on this subject. We'll be starting in a minute. Let me finish my protein shake. Let me make sure my mic is on. For those of you on IG, and let me know where y'all are checking in from as y'all are coming in. We get some activity going in the chat. Please like the stream wherever you are watching this. Please give me some likes on the stream, likes on Instagram, likes on YouTube, likes on Facebook, likes on TikTok. Like the damn stream. The least any of y'all can do is like the stream. We're gonna start setting the standard. Let's at least get the 500 likes. 50,000. Excuse me, 50,000 likes every time I do a stream here. There should be nothing precluding us from getting 50,000 likes in the stream. All you gotta do is tap the screen for us to get the 50,000 likes. We're at 500 right now on TikTok. As y'all are coming in, again, you can shout yourselves out. Tell me your locations. The topic again today is the immigrants coming in from South Africa seeking asylum that some people seem to have some issues with. Nikki, good morning to you. Happy Friday. Dowie M.A.K., good to see you here. Traditional, good morning. Connecticut is here. Yes, tap the screen, folks. Can we get to 50,000 likes? China H, good morning to you. Good to see you. Can we get 50,000 likes on TikTok here today? Just start tapping the screen. Don't worry about the number yet. We'll get there if everybody stays locked in. Freedom Doritos on YouTube said, watching from KwaZulu Natal, RSA. I don't even know where that is. What is that? Freedom Doritos, where is that? I'm assuming KwaZulu. Let me guess. Is that on the African continent? Where is that? I've not heard of this place. KwaZulu Natal /RSA. I do not know where that is. Can somebody tell me, or Freedom, tell me where that is that you're talking about? Marcy Minshew. Good morning, Marcy Minshew. Checking in from North Carolina. Shout out to North Carolina. I got a lot of friends in North Carolina. Beautiful place. Weather not as good as South Florida, but close enough. Well, not close enough, but close. That's what I'll say. South Africa. Okay, so you're checking in from South Africa. Okay, so we got some South Africans in the house. Okay, y'all want to hear what I have to say about this? Great. Let's get into it. So this is a new controversy that most of you, maybe some of you have heard of it, maybe some of you have not heard of it. It's sparked online in political circles because the Trump administration has reportedly, actually I think this is pretty much confirmed, has granted asylum. The Trump administration granted asylum to a group of white South African farmers and their families. The number that I last heard was 59 families. So it's not like there's millions of people. 59 families was the last number that I heard. They are farmers and their families. And the reason that they're seeking asylum is because they are citing racial discrimination and persecution in their home country of South Africa. Now, these asylum seekers claim that they are being targeted in South Africa through land reform policies, violent attacks, and systemic marginalizations due to their race, which is a narrative that has long been debated both domestically and abroad. While some view this as a rare acknowledgement of anti-white discrimination, and a lot of people have a problem with that very concept. We're going to get into that here today. Others see it as a racially selective asylum policy, meaning people who are challenging the Trump administration for even allowing this, especially in contrast to how Black and brown asylum seekers, I'm going to challenge that very phrase, is not Black asylum seekers, it's brown asylum seekers. Black people and brown people are not a monolith. We are not one group. Black people in America are Black Americans. We've been here. Brown people coming into here, they are not the same as this because their skin tone seems to be slightly similar. We are not the same. So there's not a whole bunch of black people seeking asylum in America. It's brown people, just to be clear. And these asylum seekers are often treated, brown, by the U.S. immigration systems, how they're treated compared to how these white asylum seekers from Africa have been treated. People are trying to draw a comparison to these two and say, well, why is the Trump administration going so hard on the brown people, but they are so welcoming on these white people? And that's a conversation that will be had here today. And the decision has ignited a firestorm of reaction, both, again, supporters and critics, was the reason why we're talking about it. Because if we all had the same opinion on this, there'd be no need to talk about it. Introducing myself, for those who don't know me, my name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day. I'm a former 9-year professional athlete. I'm the author of 41 books. You can see some of those books behind me on the shelf. I've done 4 TEDx talks, and I own this company called Work on Your Game Incorporated. What we do here is business coaching, business consulting, speaking, and training, all based on taking the tools to help athletes reach the top of the sports game and translating those tools over to the business and the professional game. You can learn more about that by going to the link in my profile or the pinned link you see in the comments or in my bio, wherever you are watching. We're on 7 different platforms right now: Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, X, Instagram, and TikTok. So if you see me looking at different cameras, I'm looking at different lenses here because I'm talking to multiple people at the same time. I will respond to comments. I do that at the end of my monologue. We'll just call this. At the end of this monologue, I do get into commentary. As you can see, I have a timer. Everything goes by time over here in my world. So we have 49 minutes on the timer for me to get through my monologue, and then we'll get into the dialogue, which is going to be you leaving a comment, me reading the comment, and responding to your comment. I probably won't get to every single comment, but I'll get to a good number of them. If you are on TikTok, please tap the screen so we can get the likes going. We're at 3,800 likes so far. We want to get to 50,000 as a baseline expectation every time I go live on TikTok. 50,000 is an easy number to hit. Usually we get 75, 80. Some days we get to 100. Can we at least get to 50 here today, those of you watching on TikTok? Good morning, Courtney, over there on TikTok. So first of all, I got to share some context because I went looking into this. First of all, I'm not from Africa. I've never set foot on African soil. My parents had not, and their grandparents had not. So even though in America, they call these people African Americans, they call us African Americans. A lot of white people use that term. I am not African. I have no ties. I mean, if you do 23andMe, maybe I could find some ties back to Africa. But I'm saying between me, my parents, and their grandparents, I'm just going 2 generations back. None of us have been to Africa. I don't know anybody in Africa. Actually, I know some people in Africa, as a matter of fact. But generally, I haven't been to Africa. I am a Black American. So I do not like the title African American because I don't know anything about Africa. Couldn't tell you a damn thing about it. A gentleman in here on YouTube, Freedom Doritos, named the place in Africa. I didn't even know it was in Africa. So that tells you how much connected I am to Africa. I'm saying all that to say this. I went and looked into this to get some context because this is not something I normally pay attention to. But when it was showing up in the news, and the reason it was showing up in the news, not because people care so much about Africa in America, it was showing up in the news because people were bashing Trump doing something, which is normal protocol here in the United States. When Trump does something, people who don't like Trump find a way to turn it negative. So this just happens to be the subject of the day. Yesterday, the subject was the airplane he's getting from Qatar. Today, the subject is white asylum seekers coming from South Africa. Tomorrow, the subject is going to be something different. This is a great thing about Donald Trump. He's the gift that keeps on giving for content creators like myself who decide to talk about these things because no matter what he does, it becomes a news story, which is beautiful. So thank you, Donald Trump. Now, here's what happened. Here's what I've found to happen. And shout out to the people from Africa who are watching me on YouTube here today. So after apartheid, the South African government promised to return land to Black citizens that was taken during colonial rule. And again, this is just material that I went and found. I'm just trying to give this to you objectively. Some of you may even challenge this because this is all history, and history is a story. So if you don't agree with this is what I got. If you disagree, that's completely fine. So the South African government promised they were going to return land to Black citizens that was taken from them during colonial rule, i.e. by white people. So they started with this whole concept called the willing buyer, willing seller plan. So the South African government basically said to the white farmers who owned a lot of land in South Africa, we are going to buy the land back from you as long as you're willing to sell it to us. If you're willing to sell it, we'll give you money and we will buy your land back from you from these white farmers. The problem with that plan is the white farmers who own the land generally rejected the offers and they did not sell their land to the South African government. So the South African government was trying to balance the books, so to speak, at least as they saw it. And they tried to buy land from the white farmers, and the white farmers pretty much didn't offer to sell any land. So the plan was too slow, it was too expensive, and most white farmers, again, didn't want to sell their land. So in 2018, here's what happened. The government in South Africa, they pushed to change the law and allow, listen to this, land seizure without paying the owners. This literally happened in South Africa. The South African government said, we're just going to take it, or we tried to buy it from you, you wouldn't sell it. So now we're just going to take the shit from you, and we're not going to pay you anything. We're not going to ask you permission. We're just going to take the land from you on the basis of, the whole concept here was on the basis of making things right racially. Now, why does this matter? The United States of America, you've heard from President Obama to Hillary Clinton a little bit. She didn't really get that much into it. Definitely Joe Biden and definitely Kamala Harris. Not as much as she would have, not as much as she would have liked. She probably wants to. But this whole concept of we got to balance the books racially based on historical situations and historical wrongdoings. We're going to take from the people who owe, and you did bad things. My ancestors had bad things happen to me at the hands of your ancestors. Therefore, you today owe me something for something that happened back then. Y'all have heard this conversation in the United States a lot. I'm saying that to say this. In South Africa, they actually started doing this shit. They started actually making this happen. So they started taking land from white people and I guess giving it to black people as a way of morally balancing the books of what had happened in the past. This is what they are saying. In 2018, this started happening in South Africa. Now, the EFF, which is known as the Economic Freedom Fighters, and some ANC, which is the African National Congress, their leaders, the leaders of these organizations, the EFF and the ANC, openly supported taking white-owned land by force. Now, again, there may be some people here who support South African black people taking land or the government taking land and giving it to black people for whatever reason you believe. And I didn't even get into that yet. We're going to get into that in a moment. But just on this alone, there's more context. I'm not done. But that's crazy. That's crazy. And I say this as a black person. That's crazy that the government just decides, you know what, we want this land. We're just going to take it from you. We're just going to take it. And there are leaders and organizations in the country saying, yes, that's exactly what they should do. Just take the land from them. And something I posted on X yesterday, my X name is @DreAllDay. And I said the only reason that the government can't do something like that in the United States is because people got guns. So you want an argument in favor of the Second Amendment comparing the United States to another country? Here's one for you right there. That you couldn't do that in the United States because the people who own the land, who you would try to take it from, they got guns, they can defend their land. But in a country where people may not have the guns, well, they get their shit taken from them. But let's continue. So the government takes this land, allegedly. So their public statements by the EFF and the ANC fuel resentment and racial tension across the country. I would think so. I would think so if you start doing this, that there are some people who are happy about it, some people upset about it, and there's going to be a whole lot of conversation. I would bet that happens. And by the way, I'm going to respond to questions and comments after I get done my points. So what started happening was there were farm attacks. So many brutal and many violent started rising, especially on white-owned land. So in other words, if I'm parsing this properly, the government and these organizations, the EFF and the ANC, they basically started stroking the emotions of black people who were sold. And I'm trying to relate this to Americans. So black people have been sold this concept that things were stolen from you and people owe you and white people were wrong. And then you got leaders who have a voice in the government and in the country making more noise and just getting you more excited and more riled up about this. Think January 6th, think the BLM riots in 2020, January 6th situation in 2021, similar things. You get the crowd all hyped up and excited about this. And then they start actually doing shit. And which is exactly what ended up happening in South Africa. And there started to be attacks, especially on white-owned land. So in other words, I'm guessing a bunch of black people said, all right, let's go get these white people. And they start going on their land and attacking them. All right, let's continue. The government, according to what I found, and again, people may have different accounts, has done little to stop these attacks or punish the attackers. In other words, the reports are the government is pretty much allowing this to happen. They are complicit in allowing this to happen because they know it's happening, but they're not doing anything to stop it. So in other words, you want to parallel that to something happening in the United States. This is what people say about Donald Trump from January 6, 2021. He knew it was going to happen. He knew it was happening. He just let it happen and didn't try to stop it, according to his detractors. That's what many people say about it. And white farmers in South Africa now, this is what we're talking about, have started to feel targeted by both the government and by ordinary citizens. If everything that I've said here so far, if there's a white person living in South Africa who owns a farm, if they believe these things that I've said, again, I'm sure there are people who see things differently than what I've just explained. Okay, I'm not stating this as this is absolute, you had to accept it because, again, this is a story. And stories have different sides, as we all know. But if I'm a white person living in South Africa and I believe everything that I just said, then hell yeah, I'm concerned. I'm concerned for my life. I'm concerned for my family. I'm concerned that my land's going to be taken from me. I'm worried about the government. I'm worried about other citizens. And all this stuff is being hyped up against me just because of the color of my skin, and I didn't even do anything wrong. So some of these white people see no future in the country, and they started applying for asylum in the United States, Canada, and Australia, according to what I'm hearing. So this is not just in the United States. And again, the United States is only 59 families that came. So it's not like they brought in thousands of people, 59 families. So they argue, these white people, they argue that they're being punished not for what they did, but for being white in what has become a broken system. And the South African president, the president of South Africa, this is something that he has come out with a statement that he put out a couple of days ago, that he was saying that people who are fleeing the country, instead of dealing with this historic privilege and the accountability, he said people who are fleeing are cowards. He related them to being cowards for not staying around and dealing with the accountability that they need to face based on historic privilege. This is what the president of the country is saying. And again, y'all have heard this before in the United States. The only reason it couldn't work in the United States is because of our system of checks and balances, because of the Second Amendment. It worked in South Africa, or at least it worked to the point that people are getting their shit taken from them, and this is what's happening. And by the way, I'm going to address questions and comments at the end. So let's get into this on the pros and cons side. As I like to do, those of you who are not familiar with me, I like to argue both sides of this conversation, at least bring up the points of both sides, even if I can't bring myself to find any agreement with it, we'll at least bring up the points. So let's get into it. So this whole situation highlights the reality that race-based violence and discrimination can affect people of any color, even in countries with black majorities. So what we talked about a couple of days ago here was the black fatigue, that whole concept of black fatigue. And there's a lot of black people who don't like the concept of black fatigue the way it's currently being used, which is, let's just say, white people getting tired of black people trying to make everything about race, trying to make them paint themselves as victims. Again, I'm saying the people who are white who are using this term, they're trying, black people calling everything about race, calling everything racism, making everything about their skin color, and blaming white people for everything. And white people are saying, we're tired of this shit. And there are even black people out there saying, we're tired of these N-words who are doing this all the time. It's not just y'all white people, some black people who feel this way as well. I put myself in that category. I talked about that a couple of days ago, that I'm tired of some of these black folks as well, even though I'm a black person myself. So can racial discrimination affect people of all colors? The answer is yes, it can. The problem with that argument is that there's a whole lot of black people who are strongly of the belief that it is impossible to be racist if you're black. I'm sure some of you South Africans probably believe that as well. There are people in America and all over the world, black people, who believe that if you are black and you have been historically marginalized based on your race, it is not possible by definition for you to be racist today, simply because you have not traditionally had the power to be racist, whatever that means to the people who believe it. I personally do not subscribe to that way of thinking, but we had to bring it up because there are a lot of people who do subscribe to it, and there are a lot of people who strongly believe that if you are black, it is impossible for you to be racist because you have not traditionally had power. So all you're doing by being what someone like myself would call racist, all you're doing is balancing the books. You're already so far behind on the books. All right, how are you going to call me racist? All I'm doing is trying to make it even again. It ain't been even for a long time. So who are you to call me racist? You're the one who's racist, inherently racist, because of things your ancestors did to my ancestors. There are people who strongly believe that. So we got to make sure that we put that on the record so that it has been said. I personally agree with the very point, though, that just because you're white doesn't mean you cannot be racially discriminated against. I mean, we've seen that with diversity, equity, and inclusion here in the United States of America. Was there discrimination, racial discrimination involved in diversity, equity, and inclusion? The answer is, of course there was. That was the whole point of it. They just labeled it DEI because it sounds good, but what was it actually doing? It was saying, let's put more women, more minorities, and more sexual minorities into spaces that had traditionally been heterosexual, white, and male. And we're going to do that on purpose. We're going to prioritize the identity over the performance. And that's exactly what happened with DEI. No one can argue that happened. All right, that happened. Whether you agree with the concept or you don't agree with the concept is immaterial to the fact that is that what happened? The answer is hell yes, that's what happened. I'm not asking you to explain it. Is that true or is it not? Of course it's true. Anyway, so this creates the perception that the U.S. is prioritizing. This is what the critics said. This is creating the perception. So moderators, can y'all get rid of these people who are spamming my comments, please? Moderators, get rid of anybody who is spamming my comments on TikTok. So this creates a perception that the U.S. is prioritizing white suffering over the struggles of far more visibly oppressed non-white refugee groups. Again, this is one of the arguments that the political enemies of Donald Trump are making. So these white people claim that they are being antagonized in their own land. And what is happening is the Trump administration has allowed these people to come in after applying for asylum. Well, what about people who are more visibly oppressed, who are not white? What about them? My response to that is the following: that there is a process through which you get asylum in the United States. There's a process through which you immigrate to the United States. There's a process through which, if you are not a citizen, you enter the United States. There's a process. We all know this. We've been talking about this for months when it comes to immigration, because immigration has been, from the time he first came down that gold escalator at the Trump Tower, Donald Trump's main thing when it comes to running for president and his administrations has been the border, immigration, and America first. I mean, America and Americans first. That's been his whole thing from the beginning. Whether you agree with it or not, again, doesn't matter. We all can agree that that's what he's been about. Now, if you are black or brown and you want to come into this country as an immigrant, there's a process. The same way that a white person coming into the country has a process. So how people are trying, I know how, actually, I'll answer my own question. How people are trying to make this about, oh, well, Donald Trump is discriminating against the brown refugees, but he's allowing in the white refugees, is a ridiculous claim, being that it's 59 white families who came in for asylum. 59. Do you know how many people, let's say black, or not even black, I keep saying black and brown people were coming into the United States under the Biden administration and not having to go through a certain process? Not the same one that these people had to go through. So it's a ridiculous claim to try to compare these two as if it's equal. It's not equal at all. And everybody understands that. I think people logically understand it. People don't want to emotionally understand it, but it is 100% true. So the other argument is that there are other groups of people who are more visibly oppressed, who are brown. They should be prioritized over the white people who are not as visibly oppressed. So if you saw the pictures on social media, let me see if I can find one of these pictures on X, because people were posting this. A bunch of race hustle-ish people. I'm not going to say that they're race hustling, but race hustle-ish people. They were posting a picture of some of these refugees from South Africa who were coming in. And some of these people look very physically healthy. So here's one picture. So here's one picture. These people look like, if you didn't know anything, you think these are just regular Americans. All right, so it looks like they're on a bus or a train somewhere. And I do know that they are probably the refugees because they're holding some of the refugees because they're holding American flags. We're going to get to that in a moment. But there was another picture of showing this guy. Here's one. So this guy named Alex on X, Alex Cole, he is a consistent race hustler. I see his stuff pop up often in my For You tab, which is the one I usually use on X. He says, wow, these South African refugees really look like they have been suffering a lot. So he's being sarcastic. And he posts this photo, and you see this guy looks like he's been eating pretty healthy, right? This is one of the refugees. So this white refugee. So the frame that people are trying to use here is that how is it that these people, and here's another group of South African refugees, holding their, again, if you didn't know anything, you might think these are just regular white American people. So the frame that people are using is that these people don't appear to be suffering a lot, and there are other people who are visibly suffering more. Therefore, Trump is wrong for letting in these people who may not be doing so bad into the country, but he's wrong for not letting the people who may be doing really bad into the country. By the way, if you're on TikTok, please like the stream. Can we get the 20K, folks, please? We're at 17K likes. Can we get the 20K as quickly as possible, please? So my response to that is bullshit. Here's why my response is bullshit. First of all, actually, there are several different points on this. First of all, just because you appear to be visibly struggling does not mean that we are responsible for helping you, saving you, or housing you. I'm not responsible for helping you just because you appear to be visibly struggling and you're not from this country. All right. Again, what is Donald Trump's whole thing from the very time he came in? America first. Donald Trump's thing was America first. Now, you may be asking, well, if it's America first, why is he letting these asylum seekers in? I'm going to get to that in one moment. But just because someone appears to be visibly struggling does not mean you, I, or anyone else is responsible for helping them, because that ain't our role. Now, if you live in America, that's a different conversation. But we're talking about people who are seeking asylum and people who are refugees into the United States. We don't owe them anything. That is the America first approach. We don't owe you just because you're from somewhere else and you see greener pastures over here. Maybe our pastures are greener. That's because we water the damn grass. We ain't responsible for letting you in because we got to prioritize the people who are already here. And again, this is Donald Trump's entire base, his entire campaign since 2015. America first. That's number one. So this whole concept of we got to let them in because they're struggling is nonsense. Number two, so why let these white people come in? Why let these people who don't appear to be struggling much, these people who are on the trains or at the airport or wherever these people were? Y'all seen these videos. You see these whites. Thank you, 20K on TikTok. Can we get to 30, please? You see these white people who came in from South Africa and they're waving they got the little American flags and they got their kids with them. They got their luggage. They look very happy to be here. And here's my response to that. We talked about this when I talked about immigration, by the way. Those of you who have never heard me speak before, none of these are new talking points. All right, when we talked about immigration, this has been one of my main things when it comes to immigration. If you live in any country in the world or have been to or know anyone from any country in the world outside of the United States of America, you cannot just walk into that country and do what you want to do. It is not easy. They don't make it easy for you to become a citizen. If you want to become a citizen very quickly, often that requires a six-figure financial investment, literally a six-figure financial investment if you want to fast-track citizenship. And there's only a handful of countries who even allow you to do that. And why? Because they focus on their country first. They focus on their citizens first. And if you are there and you're not a citizen, you're not a priority because you ain't from here and you're not a citizen of us. We are not responsible for you. Every other country in the world has that way of looking at things when it comes to immigration, except the United States of America. And that doesn't mean the United States of America is wrong for allowing people to come in. As some people like to say, we're a country of immigrants. I disagree with this claim. We are a country of citizens. We are not a country of immigrants. We are a country of citizens. Immigrants who come into the United States, one of their number one priorities is how do I become a citizen so I don't have to leave? So when my visa expires, I don't get kicked out or that I'm not here illegally. I want to get documentation. I want to get paperwork and I want to be a citizen of the United States of America so that I can stay here, I can vote, and I can fully participate in the process. So we're not a country of immigrants. We're a country of citizens. Just to be clear. And these white South Africans, when I saw the videos, when I saw the photos of these white people standing at the airport or at the bus station or wherever they are, holding those American flags and smiling and being happy for the cameras because they got asylum in the United States, I said, these are the kind of immigrants we want. These are the kind of immigrants we want. Now, this is what we want in America. If we're going to bring in immigrants, we want people who are happy to be here. Number two, they understand that they are being granted a privilege, not a right. It is not your right to come here if you're not a citizen. It's a privilege to come here. You are glad that we've accepted you. And you're ready to assimilate as quickly as possible to how things go around here. That's the way it's supposed to work anytime you bring someone new into a space that is not theirs. Any of you, for example, you ever bring somebody into your house to stay at your house for some time? Like whether it was a child, a friend, a family member, you ever bring somebody into your house? Or even if you're a man or a woman and you invite the man or woman that you're dating to come live with you and move into your house, what are you expecting? These are the three expectations. Number one, you're happy to be moving in. You're not moving in against your will. You want to move in, so you're happy to move in. Number two, you are accepting of the fact that this is not yours, it's my space. And number three, you're willing to abide by the rules that I got because you're in my fucking house. That's the way it works. Any other country in the world you go to, that's what they tell you. First of all, be happy that you're here because if you ain't happy, we'll kick you back out and send you right back on the plane you came in on. Number two, you respect the fact that you are a visitor in this space. And number three, we're going to tell you the rules. And if you don't follow the rules, you got to go. Is there anywhere in the world that those aren't the rules when you go into someone else's space? The answer is no, except America during the Biden-Harris administration. That's a joke, but it's not a joke. Anywhere in the world you come in, you have to follow the rules of the place that you're walking into. You can't just walk in there and do what you want to do. This is not your space. You are a visitor here. And you are reminded that when you go into other people's spaces, hey, excuse me, you're in my house. So in my house, you take your shoes off when you come in the door. You leave your shoes next to the door. You don't walk around on my carpet with your shoes. Now, do you just walk around in somebody's house with your shoes on and saying, well, hey, where I come from, we walk around with our shoes on? No, you're disrespecting that person's house, and they're probably going to get you out of the house as quickly as possible because you're disrespecting the rules. Isn't this the way it works? So when I see these South African white people who look happy to be here, they're waving American flags, I'm thinking to myself, just based off that alone, I haven't heard any of these people talk. I don't know anything about them, nothing. I'm looking at that and saying these people look like they're ready to follow the rules of the place that they're walking into, and they're respecting the fact that they're visitors and that they are being welcomed here as a privilege, not as a right. I said, these are the kind of immigrants we want. I'm happy with this. Go get more of them. Donald Trump, you want to let immigrants in? These are the kind of immigrants we want. Now, let's be clear. I'm not saying it because they're white. I just told you why I'm saying it. If there were brown people doing the same thing, okay, let them in too. Okay, where you come from. I don't care where you came from. If you're brown and you're happy to be here and you're waving the American flag and you are ready to be told the rules so that you can follow them as best as possible, you are an exemplary immigrant. You are the person that we want. We don't want people who are going to come here and do what they want to do. And they're looking at us as if we owe them, we as America owe them something just because we're here and we got it does not mean that we owe it to you. And that you're going to bring your customs and your way of living over to our world and just do it just because you feel like doing it. Fuck out of here. No, that's not the way immigration works. Again, name a country in the world where you can do that besides America. Name that country. There shouldn't be any answers because there aren't any. There's no other country in the world where you can do that. So this draws attention to legitimate concerns in South Africa over these issues, what's happening on these farms, the land seizures, and the political rhetoric that seems to be targeting white citizens. As I said in the beginning, if I'm white and I'm seeing this happening in my country, I might want to get the hell out of there too. Or I'm going to strap up and now I got to start taking heads off. You come on my land. But you got to pick. You basically got a binary here. You got two options. You either strap up and you start fighting back against these folks, or you get the hell out of there. It's pretty much the only two choices you got. So what would you do? Would you stay there and, quote unquote, pay reparations for historical wrongdoings that have nothing to do with you? I don't agree with that. I wouldn't do it. What would you do? If you were one of those white South Africans, what would you do? Would you stay there and give up your land and have your land taken from you by the government while the leaders in that country are stirring up black people to hate you just because you're white? Would you stay there? I wouldn't. Or I would stay there and I'm taking heads off, or I'm leaving, or one or the other. But you pretty much don't have another option because of this color of your skin. So it's not like you go there and do anything that's going to get them off your back. All right, you're still going to be white no matter what you say. Or they usually let them take your shit. And I guess you end up living in the African version of the projects, whatever they call that over there. But many of these individuals, this is what some people are saying. Many of these people who've come here from South Africa, they appear to be wealthy. I don't know about wealthy. I don't know how somebody looks wealthy. So let's reject that one. But well-resourced. So it looks like they got some stuff. They got luggage. They got suitcases. They're bringing their families over. They got 6 or 4, maybe they got 4 or 5, 6 suitcases. Some of these people are overweight. So it looks like they've been eating pretty well. And people say that undermines the optics of them being traditional asylum seekers. I say, correct. That's true. All right. Traditionally, if you think someone's seeking asylum from another country because they're concerned about political persecution and they come to the United States of America, I told you to draw a picture of that person. If I went into one of my photo apps and I went to the prompt that you tell it to create an AI image, I want you to draw a picture of an asylum seeker coming from another country outside the United States who is worried about political persecution. What does this person look like? Let's try that out. Let's see if we can make that happen. Let me see if I can go on the phone app. I usually create the images on the desktop, but let's see if we can create that. Y'all want to try this? Let's see what we can do. So text to image AI. All right, here we go. Create an image of a male and female couple who are asylum seekers coming from another country into the United States, concerned about political persecution in their home country. Make sure that you show their facial expressions to reflect the situation that they are dealing with in their seeking of asylum in the United States of America. All right, so now we're going to have it create this image. Let's see what it comes up with. And I specifically did not mention a color because I want to see what the AI naturally thinks of when you put in this prompt. So let's give it a minute to come up with this prompt of what it traditionally looks like. But let me respond to not the comment, but the point, in that people are saying that this disturbs the optics of what you traditionally think when you see an asylum seeker. And this photo app is about to tell us what a traditional asylum seeker looks like. I say, good. Okay, it can disturb the optics. I agree that it disturbs the optics. That traditionally, when we hear the term asylum seeker, we're thinking someone who is maybe poor, emaciated. They got a damn shopping bag full of clothes. They only got the clothes on their back. They ain't got nothing else. Their kids are malnourished, and they're about 3 days away from dying of starvation and thirst. That's maybe what we think when we see an asylum seeker. That does not mean that's the only type of asylum seeker that there is. Doesn't mean that somebody else can't be it. All right, exceptions may help prove the rule, but it doesn't mean the exception doesn't exist. So I just gave y'all that asylum seeker, right? So here's what they came up with. All right. I get told to get two images. Here's one. Y'all heard the prompt. Y'all heard the prompt. This is what they came up with. This is image number one. That's an asylum seeker. Image number one. See him with the book bag. And he got the backpack. That's probably all he got. They got pretty cleaned up to be asylum seekers, according to what we're supposed to believe. Here's the second asylum seeker. Asylum seeking couple. I said create a couple. All I said was a couple. Did I say male and female? Yeah, I said male and female. So I don't know. Maybe this is the this is the non-binary one. I don't know what this is. This is supposed to be male and female. It looks like two women to me. But anyway, all right, this is what they came up with. So does this disturb the optics of traditional asylum seekers? Yes. My response to that, so what? So what? Next, it shows, this is what the supporters say, it shows that the United States is willing to acknowledge complex global race dynamics beyond the usual black-white binary seen in American discourse. Fair enough. I mean, if I'm a supporter of the Trump administration, or if I'm MAGA or I'm in the Trump administration, I will gladly take this point. I will gladly take this gift of a point. And again, let me say it again, that the United States is willing to address and acknowledge global racial dynamics beyond the usual black-white binary. Fine. I don't think that really had much to do with it. But if you hand me that point and I'm in the Trump administration, I'll gladly take it. Thank you. Next. The detractors say this is feeding into the far right narrative. As soon as somebody calls something far right, they're already trying to make it look bad. So they label it far right. That far right is a pejorative. All right, as soon as you hear that far right, people are just trying to make you look bad. Whatever they say after that, you got to weigh it with the fact they labeled it far right. So it feeds into these far right narratives about quote unquote white genocide narrative, which are often exaggerated and politically charged without proper nuance. Are you fucking kidding me? Now, everything that is said in politics is exaggerated and politically charged without proper nuance. Everything said in politics is exaggerated, politically charged, and it doesn't have proper nuance. That applies to every single thing you hear from every politician every single day, and is multiplied by 5 when you bring Donald Trump into the picture, because people are so emotionally unhinged when it comes to Donald Trump. And it's mostly the people on the detractor side, but even some of the supporters have that issue as well. Over here in the USA, we call that Trump derangement syndrome. And most of the deranged people are people who are against Donald Trump. It doesn't make them bad people. It just means they're deranged. All right? Deranged people can be good too. Or your grandpa could be deranged at some point. So they're talking about a far right. So you got to watch all these terms that should be red flags for you. First of all, as soon as somebody labels something far right. All right, thank you for the likes on TikTok. Can we get to 40,000? Far right is number 1. Notice that one. Narrative is number 2. Whenever someone labels something as a narrative, don't you notice whenever someone labels something as a narrative, they're trying to downplay it. They're trying to make it seem like it's not that good because they're calling it a narrative. Oh, you're just coming up with this narrative. Everything is a fucking narrative, ladies and gentlemen. Everything is a narrative. Facts don't matter. I told y'all this a few times earlier this week. I told you the week before that. I told you the week before that. And I told you the week before that. And I will keep telling you all this until you understand it. Facts do not matter. What do I mean when I say facts do not matter? It means that even if you have a fact on your side and you present it to someone who does not want to accept your fact, you can never get them to accept the fact, because they can come up with their own fact, their own counterfact that goes against yours. You come up with another counterfact. They come up with another one. And y'all can go back and forth on fact versus fact forever. And neither of you will ever change the mind of the other person with facts alone. So any of you who believes you can settle a debate or an argument by presenting quote unquote facts, please stop. You're wasting your time and energy. Facts don't matter the way that they used to matter. And artificial intelligence is only exacerbating this issue, because we can all use artificial intelligence to come up with facts and counterfacts faster than we can even say them, let alone consume them, let alone think about them. So facts don't matter. So this whole concept of calling something a narrative as opposed to, I guess, a fact means absolutely nothing. All right, narrative is the game these days. So any of you who don't like the concept of a narrative, I suggest you go see a doctor for that and get some pills, because narrative runs the day. All right, narrative runs the day. Whoever can better sell their story is the one who wins. All right, we were talking yesterday about the presidential elections. How do you win a presidential election? You sell a better narrative than the opponent. That's it. Why did Trump beat Kamala? Because he had a better narrative than Kamala. That's why he won. That's it. Why did Obama win twice? He had the best narrative. You have the worst narrative, you lose. You have the best narrative, you win. That's how it works. In case any of you didn't know, that is how it works. Next, legally, asylum is based on persecution, not poverty. And if someone faces real targeted harm due to race, they may qualify under U.S. law. Here's a fact for you right there. Now, how many of you who disagree with the white people being brought into the United States have changed your mind now I just gave you a fact? That's a fact. that legally asylum does not mean you have to be in poverty, doesn't mean you have to be broke, doesn't mean you have to be poor, doesn't mean you have to be brown, doesn't mean you have to be emaciated, doesn't mean you have to be down to the clothes on your back, it doesn't mean that you didn't eat in 3 weeks. Asylum simply means that you have been persecuted in some way that you can prove. That's all it means. You can be the healthiest person in the world, and if you feel like you are being persecuted, you can apply for asylum. That is legally a fact. Now, again, how many people changed their mind now that I gave you that fact? All right, notice the answer is nobody. All right, that's why facts don't matter. Y'all get it? Are y'all understanding this now? Or do I got to say it another 100 times for everybody to understand? So anybody can qualify for asylum based on what's actually happening to you, not how you look. All right, so this guy got nice clothes on, so he can't possibly be being persecuted. That makes no sense. But again, this is what people want to argue. Next, detractors say it undermines public trust in the immigration system when some white, English-speaking, land-owning families are granted asylum more easily than war-torn, impoverished refugees of color. All right, this is bullshit. This is another bullshit point, but we got to bring it up because this is what people are saying on that side of the conversation. So they're saying that if you're white, you speak English, and you land-own, you are being granted asylum more easily than a war-torn, impoverished refugee of color. I say this is nonsense because how many war-torn, I don't know what exactly they mean by that when they say war-torn, or impoverished. Again, you being impoverished has nothing to do with your being granted asylum. It has absolutely nothing to do with it. Just because you're broke does not mean you're owed asylum more than somebody who's rich. If a rich person asks for asylum and a broke person asks for asylum, then either one of them can get asylum. Neither one of them is more qualified just based on that one data point. That doesn't make any sense. But again, people are arguing this shit because most people are much more emotional than they are logical. That's another reason why facts don't matter. How are you going to give a logical fact to an emotional person? The answer is a waste of your time. Stop trying. For any of you who still doesn't get it, I'll say it another million times until all of you understand it, until I change the world. Now, if you are letting somebody come live in your house, who you rather have live in your house? A rich person who owns land or a poor person who ain't got nothing? Who you rather have in your house? Who you rather have in your house, the rich person or the poor person? I'd rather have the rich person because I have some reason to believe the rich person knows how to conduct themselves in somebody else's house. That a rich person is willing to listen to the rules. That a rich person may have some standards and ways of living that when they hear about mine, they're willing to adjust because they've had something similar in their past. Or the poor person, I don't know, they may be looking around and seeing what of mine they can get for themselves because they ain't got shit. I'd rather deal with somebody who got something than the person who has nothing, personally. Maybe that's just I don't know. What is that? What am I saying here when I say something like that? Maybe that's the 1%er in me talking. So it undermines the public trust, they said. So if you're white and you speak English and you land-own, that means you're not supposed to get asylum as opposed to someone who comes from a war place and you're a refugee and you're of color. Again, how many refugees of color were allowed into the United States under the 4 years of the Biden administration? Go find that number. All right, compared to this 59 white families from South Africa, literally 59 people or their families. So let's just say it's 4 people per family. So what's that? About 250 people? Let's say it's 250 people got brought in, white people. How many people, black and brown, came into the United States under the Biden administration? Let's see if we can find out. Let's get a narrative from ChatGPT. How many black and brown asylum seekers were allowed into the United States under the Biden administration? Did I say black and brown? Or did I say brown? I said black and brown again. See, they even got me saying this shit. It's actually brown. I didn't see too many black people coming in. So under the Biden administration, the United States granted asylum to a significant number of individuals from predominantly, and again, they are even saying it, black and brown countries. What's a black country? What country is that? I don't know what they're talking about. Anyway, in the fiscal year 2023, U.S. granted asylum to 54,350 individuals. This is just granted asylum, meaning like they went through the paperwork process. We're not talking about those who just came in. We're not even talking about them. We're talking about the paperwork process of asylum, which can be documented. So specific racial or ethnic data is not provided, but many of them come from brown populations from many countries such as Haiti, Venezuela, Cuba, and various African countries have seen significant contributors to the overall asylum numbers. So humanitarian parole programs. I never even heard of this. So, all right. So this is bringing up some other stuff that have nothing to do with it. So just that number alone, 54,000 compared to, let's say, 250 people. What are we talking about here? Again, y'all want to talk about facts? Are you joking? All right, we're almost at 40,000 likes here on TikTok, folks. Please get the number up. Next, it serves as a strategic political move to appeal to white conservative voters who feel underrepresented or demonized in global race discussions. This is a great point for the Trump administration. Let me say it again. By allowing these white people into the country, it is a great strategic political move for the Trump administration to appeal to white conservative voters who feel underrepresented and or demonized in this global conversation around race. So if you're a white conservative voter, put the word yes in the comments if you agree with that point that I just shared. That Trump bringing in, let's see if any of you is brave enough to even admit that. If you're a white conservative voter, do you agree with that point? That Trump doing this is a great move to appeal to people like you because you feel underrepresented or demonized in a global racial discussion. Because anytime race comes up, white people are basically told you got to shut up and be quiet because you're an oppressor and your family did bad things to us back in the day, et cetera, et cetera. Now, Trump doing this is saying, hey, let's if you want to read into it this way. Trump did not say this himself, but he could be looking at this as balancing it out. So I see a bunch of you saying yes. All right, so we got some conservative people willing to admit that they see this as a positive point, which is a good step forward for all of us, for people to just be able to state how the fuck they feel, which I'm open to. So white conservative voters, when it comes to global race discussions, as I just said, you're pretty much told, be quiet. You got a DEI consultant came to your company and they lectured you on your inherent racism because you're white, and you had to sit there and take it. And finally, the Trump administration is throwing some bones, so to speak, for lack of a better term, at these conservative voters. I mean, this is the reason why they voted for him. This is the reason why Trump won 2 elections, and depending on who you ask, he might have won 3. Let's just say 2.5, maybe, because he is appealing to the majority population in the United States of America, which is how you win an election, by the way, in case any of you didn't know. You win an election, you appeal to the majority of voters. That's pretty much what Donald Trump did. We talked about this many times over the months here. So some say, detractors say, this reinforces the idea that the U.S. immigration system applies a double standard when the suffering is coming from white people. Again, if you notice these detracting points that I'm pointing out, you notice that all the detractors are doing is taking the same points and just repackaging them and saying basically the same thing over and over again. By the way, what's very important in politics, you must figure out how to do this. You got to get good at it. Taking the same point and just saying it over and over again in as many different ways as you can. You want to see an example? Look up Bernie Sanders and the oligarchy. He's been fighting for the last 30 years and failing, but he just keeps coming up with different ways to talk about it, to the point that he's in 2025 going on tour to talk about oligarchy. And when he's been talking about it since 1993 and has been failing ever since. But anyway, that the U.S. immigration system applies a double standard when the suffering is coming from white people. This is a nonsense point. I would say that the U.S. immigration system is applying a double standard. Let's say I was in charge of immigration. Who's in charge of immigration in the United States right now? Who's that person? Is that Kristi Noem? Is that somebody else? Who is the person in charge of the immigration system in the United States of America right now under the current Trump administration? So I want to find this person's name because I'm going to basically put myself in their shoes. I need to find out what their title is. What's the title of the person in charge of immigration? Tom Homan? He's the person in charge? Is that him? Okay, so they gave me a little chart here. So they say the Department of Justice, then the Department of Homeland, DOJ, then the DHS, then ICE, then ERO, Enforcement Removal Operations, then Homeland Security Investigations, HSI, then CBP, and then is one more. So they said under President Donald Trump administration, the key officials overseeing the U.S. immigration system. So number 1 is Kristi Noem. So she's Homeland Security. So Kristi Noem, then Kika Scott, who is the Director of Citizenship and Immigration Services as USCIS. Then there's Todd Lyons. He is the ICE Director. Then there's Tom Homan. So he's the Executive Associate Director of Enforcement and Removal Operations. That's his official title. So he's number 4 on the list. So number 1 is Kristi Noem. All right, so Kristi Noem is this woman from, where's she from? North Dakota, South Dakota. Kristi Noem is the one who shot her dog and wrote about it in the book. That's her, the one who keeps putting on the makeup and glamming herself up to take photo ops. Don't like her doing that. But Kristi Noem. So if I'm Kristi Noem, the Secretary of Homeland Security, and I got this question posed to me at a press conference. They say, hey, Kristi Noem, it seems like letting these white people in It looks like U.S. immigration is applying a double standard when the suffering seems to be coming from white people. Is that true, Christy Nome? And me, speaking as Christy Nome, I would say no. We don't apply a double standard when the suffering is coming from white people. We apply a double standard when the suffering. We look at the quality of the person. We want to bring quality people into our country, and a person who appears to be more of a quality person because they already own land, they already speak English, and they are happy to come here. I'd rather have them than a person who didn't own land, doesn't speak English, and doesn't seem too happy to come here. They just seem to be walking in as if it's some type of privilege to them, as if it's some type of right to them instead of a privilege. I'd rather have the person who is happy to come here and is willing to assimilate to what we already have going on than a person who does not appear to be showing those traits. That's what we're showing. That's what we're showing preference to, and that's the way it's going to be. I'll be completely okay with this. Now, I would get shredded in the press for saying this out loud if I'm Christy Nome, but I would say it, and this is the reason why I'm not a politician. This would create a whole lot of issues for the Trump administration. I don't know if Trump would be mad or not at me saying it that way, but I would say it because I wouldn't give a damn. But again, this is the reason why I'm not a politician. So the double standard is not white versus black. The double standard should be, I'm not saying this is what immigration is actually doing. Because if you look at it as a whole, the U.S. is still allowing way more brown people in than they're allowing white people in. Let's not even joke about that. But what it should be is we want to bring in the highest quality people we can into our country. Again, you go to another country in the world, especially developed nations, and you want to come into their country as a citizen, the number one thing they're looking at is who are you? What is your background? What have you been doing? What are you bringing with you? And how are you going to make our situation better? If you're not making our situation better, we're not letting you in. Any of you ever go to an exclusive place like a nightclub or a restaurant that is in high demand or a bar that is a popular place for people to go? You know how they decide who gets in and who doesn't get in? All right, they're looking at you and they're judging what kind of person are you. That's how it works. They are judging what kind of person are you. If you're a female and you're trying to get into a nightclub or a bar, who's the ones who get let in at the front of the line? Who's the ones who get in and who's the ones who get left outside? We know. The prettiest girls get let in, and the girls who ain't as pretty, they got to stand in line. You might get in, you might not. Who are the men who get in? The men who get in immediately and don't have to stand in line are the men who put $3,000 on the table and buy bottles. And other than that, there's the men who might know the bouncer or know the owner. And then all the other men got to stand in line with the girls and they got to wait. But you might get in, you might not. That's the way it works. We don't just let everybody in just because you want to get in. We don't just let everybody in. The point being, if you are increasing the value of the venue, you have a better chance of getting into the space. You got a better chance of getting into the venue. That's the way it works. If your presence increases the value of the venue because you're there, then you are more likely to be allowed in. Y'all understand this? This is the way it works. It's the way it works at the club. It's the way it works at a restaurant. It's the way it works at the bar. It's the way it works in any type of community. You ever move into a community that has like a homeowners association, and you basically have to apply to buy or rent a house there? What's one of the things they're looking at? They're looking at who are you? And the people in charge in that association, they get together and they have a meeting with you and your family, and they are assessing you. They are judging you from top to bottom and asking themselves, if we let this person buy a house in our community or rent a house in our community, is it going to make the community better or is it going to make the community worse? And if they think you're going to make the community better, they will reject your application and they will not let you buy a house in that community, even if you got the money. That's the way it works. So are you increasing the value or are you bringing it down? And if the United States did immigration that way, then immigration numbers will go down real quick. And it doesn't mean that you got to show up rich to become an immigrant. Again, you can show up with no money, but are you looking to do something positive? Are you looking to bring positivity here? What were you doing before you got here? We want to know all that stuff. And people are going to look into that. And they should be looking into that. This is what y'all do. By the way, all right, when you pick a mate, when you pick a husband or a wife or a boyfriend or a girlfriend, what are you looking at? All right, is this person going to make my situation better or worse? Is this true or not? So how all of a sudden, when it comes to immigration, we supposed to just let anybody in just because? Why? Why would you do that? Do you let yourself date anybody? Any of you ever had a person interested in dating you and you weren't interested in them, but you said, well, they want me, so I guess I just got to bite the bullet and I got to take one for the country and just date this person so they're not by themselves. Any of you ever done that? You probably regretted it. So I don't see a problem with the country doing it. So some say that on the support side, this spotlights the hypocrisy of global elites who ignore violence against white minorities for fear of being labeled racist themselves. This is pretty much true. That there's a bunch of people who don't want to say, hey, There could be racism against white people because you're going to get called racist just for bringing that up. Is there such thing as racism against white people? And the answer is hell yeah, there's such thing as racism against white people, because the definition of racism is a way of thinking that one race is superior to another just based on the basis of race alone. Anybody can do that. Anybody can be racist. There's no such thing as black people can't be racist. That is a bullshit excuse that some dumb black people came up with, and they handed it to a bunch of more dumb black people who now accept it and they try to argue in favor of it. That's bullshit. Racism is a way of thinking. Anybody can be racist. You being black does not preclude you from being racist. Stop using that as an excuse. If you're racist, stop being a bitch and just admit that you're racist. If you don't like white people, just say you don't like white people. And if someone calls you racist, so what? What you scared of? And if you want to be racist, be racist. Racism is not a crime. Racism is not a crime. If you want to be racist, be racist. But don't be black and say black people can't be racist as a way of deflecting responsibility for the way that you feel. If that's how the fuck you feel, just say how the fuck you feel. Just own it. That's all I would say to black people. Anyway, continuing. This escalates the racial tension domestically by feeding the perception that some lives and grievances are more quote unquote legitimate than others. Again, as you can see, they're just repackaging the same argument over and over again. I reject this. I've already answered that, so I'm even going to answer it again. So it brings attention to the complexity of post-apartheid South Africa and how reverse discrimination can coexist with historic oppression. That we already introduced in the opening. Yes, that's what this is. Reverse discrimination combined with what they call historic oppression, which I don't even like that concept, because again, it gives credence to people living today to claim oppression over some oppression they didn't even deal with. You didn't deal with that oppression. You're saying you're dealing with the remnants of it, and then you're blaming the people who, again, they didn't do it, but they're benefiting from it. So it's like you owe me, basically, because it basically got passed down through generations. So your dad owed, so now you owe, and I generally don't agree with that concept. I generally do not. So it risks trivializing the legitimate oppression still faced. This is what people against it say. Legitimate oppression still faced by black South Africans and global communities by putting white pain in the spotlight. I would disagree with this because of what I already told you in the introduction. In the introduction, the government in South Africa is putting black pain in the spotlight, and the white people are like, damn, what the hell are we supposed to do about this? Let's get the hell out of here. And the president is calling them cowards for not staying around and dealing with this black pain. And we want to make you feel some pain because your ancestors allegedly made us feel pain. So now you got to feel pain as a payback. This is nonsense. This is nonsense. And again, what else I got to say about it? I already talked about that in the intro. And last point, the pro side said it opens a door for a deeper conversation about how we define victimhood, privilege, and race in a global context, not just through the U.S. lens. That one, we beat that point up already through what we talked about here today. So all that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we just hit exactly 1 hour here. My timer is up. So now we got an hour for commentary. So the first thing I need to do, I need to take a restroom break. I am going to let you listen to, I learned my lesson in playing anybody else's shit on here. So let me play my own. And what I'll do is play a little bit from my Work on Your Game podcast. This is only going to take me 90 seconds to go to the restroom. So I'm going to go to the restroom real quick. And while I'm doing that, then when I come back from this 90-second restroom break, we're going to get to the comments. We're going to start on YouTube. Then we're going to go over to Instagram. Then we'll go over to TikTok. I think we're going to have some lively conversation here today. This episode that I'm playing from is my fundamental disagreement with the liberal view in the United States of America. Again, it's not about today's topic, but we're just going to let this play. Actually, as a matter of fact, I shouldn't do this. You know what I should do? Because I was thinking, no, actually, let me do this. This is the safest way. I'll be right back. 90 seconds, be right back. That's what we're going to discuss here today. Now, people have asked me, especially when I'm doing live streams, I get people who make presumptive statements. It's not even questions, really. They're more presumptive statements. They say, well, you sound like you may be a Trump supporter, or I've had people tell me that they appreciate the fact that I'm willing to share any conservative viewpoints, and some people will say, well, you sound like a MAGA or right-wing person. I get that on X often. And what I've always maintained, and I continue to maintain, is that I have no political affiliation and no commitment to any political side. I never have had one. All I do is try to talk about things in a logical and objective manner. And what I've continued to say, and this has been being said to me a lot, especially since I started doing the live streams, and I can get people's feedback in real time while I'm speaking, which is different from you all listening to this, something that has been recorded, is that I have never had anyone accuse me of being a liberal with the way that I talk. And again, I've never had any political affiliation. I was not raised to be in any part of any political party. So why is it when I try to talk logically and objectively, I only get accused of being a conservative? So anyway, as I was playing around with this question, I thought of what exactly does the liberal view stand for? Because they're all right. Let's get to it. Let's start over on YouTube. Today we got very healthy commentary over on the YouTube side. I don't know why. We usually don't even get as much as I've seen here today, but it was a lot. So let's start over on YouTube. Oh, damn. There's a lot more. It's more than I even thought. YouTube's looking like TikTok today. So let me get through as many of them as I can. So it looks like some people from South Africa have been listening to me today. Shout out to y'all. Kevin says all minority groups colored and are those groups, but because of all the proper gender everyone thought was only white are treated badly here. Okay, so he's saying in South Africa this happens to more people than just white people, that others get treated badly as well. Okay, so Love checking in from, you put the flag, but I don't know what country that is. I know it's in Africa, but I don't know which one it is. Love says some of them wanted money, so they took the money. Okay. Freedom said many did sell. Those that got it chose to rather have a payday and sold it back to the farmer. He now owns it again after having willingly given it back. Now they want to take it again. Okay, interesting. Jay-Z said, I'm white and I got fired by a farmer in South Africa for saying white farmers are not being genocided. You got fired by what, a black farmer? Love said they did not get the land the government takes. So the government takes it, and what are they doing with it? El Marie said, hello from South Africa. They are not giving the land to black people. They are keeping it for themselves. So the government is taking the land from white people. This is what South Africans are saying on YouTube. They're saying that the government is taking the land from white people, and then the government is just keeping the land. So what's their explanation for that? Jay said, fun fact, the government gave black people 17 million of land for free. The ANC, who's the largest landowner, has given them 2.9 million, which they bought from white people. Okay. All property, one of 40 said, all property will be held by the state. It is not limited to land, even intellectual property. What are they doing with it? Kevin said, from farm attacks have always been there, but now it's extreme, and the government has taken all means of self-protection away. Yeah, see, that's why we got the Second Amendment right there. So they say there's no self-protection in South Africa. I'm not a fan of that. March Snyman said, 100% correct and spot on. I'm in South Africa as you speak. Kevin says 70% of all land in South Africa is in black people's possession, but not in black people's ownership because the ANC denies them individual ownership rights to them in these communities. So my question then, based on that, South Africans, is how and why did y'all vote for this kind of government? If you did. El Marie says, 100% correct, my American brother. We need to leave. We fear for our safety. Our president called us cowards for not taking their abuse. Yeah, I heard that, and I brought that up earlier. Kevin said, so know that there are already millions of people who continue to be denied under this democratic government basic rights to that property that they have been living on for generations. Yes. Marsh Snyman said, I survived a farm attack on a farm I didn't even own. It's about creating fear so you will leave the farm, which they can't even have. So this basically, so it sounds like what the South Africans are saying here in my comments is that the government is basically taking everything under the premise of helping black people, but they're actually just helping themselves. Grace said, I'm a white South African. The saddest part is that the majority of South Africans, both black and white, love each other. Unfortunately, like during apartheid, a few bad people can destroy a country. So who are these few bad people? Even the left definition of prejudice plus power, we have no power and we have 142 race laws that exclude us. Us meaning a white South African. 142 laws that exclude white South Africans, according to Gray on YouTube. There are politicians who openly call for white people's slaughter. All right, how did these politicians get into power is what I'm trying to get to as well. High Voltage says there are many people spending lots of money trying to pit people of different races in South Africa against each other. Fortunately for South Africans, they're smarter than that. Grace said, the irony is actual indigenous people of South Africa are Bushmen or some word that I can't pronounce with a KH. They are other white nor black. They are neither white nor black and are more closely related. SE. Okay. Go read the ANC NPR. They believe they will save us from oppressor minds. This is very interesting. Mars says, crazy. Blacks wanted to be treated as equals, then given equality. Now they want to mistreat those who agree to equality for all. So what I'm surmising here from the people in South Africa is that the government kind of played everybody. That's what it sounds like. Grace said, we are hardworking, fiercely independent, and God-fearing people. We'd rather die than be a burden and take handouts, and we love America. Okay, well, fair enough. Freedom Doritos, thank you. Dorette Van Demir, good morning. Grace said, all minority races are abused. Oh, so this is very interesting context I'm getting from the South Africans here on YouTube. Charles said this is now open for all minorities in the RSA. The next group will include Indians and coloreds. Love said the ANC uses the Constitution against us as a tool. They do things in line with the Constitution while having 142 race-based laws. Very interesting. G. Sawyer said, I'm a colored South African. The problem is that the South African government scapegoats white people for their failures, and Afrikaners are proud and hardworking people not living on benefits. So what is the benefit that black South Africans are getting from this whole process? Can somebody tell me that? Are y'all getting anything out of this? Grace said, people don't understand refugees are not just poor people. Yes, exactly. Marsh said, colored can apply and get approved or not. We all go through the process. There's no guarantee, not even for white people. Those 60 people are all victims of violent crimes, right? I'm assuming there's more than 60 applicants. Unfortunately, the Marxists have convinced poverty equals oppression. Yes, that's been a thing taught in America for a long time. Snyman says, I'm going to go to the USA for my safety. I'm self-employed. I make enough money, but money don't mean nothing if you lose your life. That is correct. The Al-Kibuan said they failed to assimilate in South Africa, though. Okay, so a conflicting argument. Kevin said the ANC's made 148 laws. The same thing happened in Zimbabwe, and Zimbabwe is a dump. Okay, well, there you go. Poison Pen said they look like that because they are not economic migrants. They are refugees. Yes, exactly, which is the point that I was making. G. Sawyer says some Americans are triggered by 59 Afrikaner refugees, but are okay with 20 million illegal invaders. Yes, which is the hypocrisy of the argument against these 59 people. South Africa, Charles says, South Africa is at stage 8 of 10 on the genocide watch. Let that sink in. I didn't know such thing as that. G. Sawyer said, at least they are vetted, unlike those millions of invaders. Yes, exactly. Grace said, we have very similar values to Americans, ideas of freedom, learn, work, and mutual respect for all. Okay. Charles says, South Africans have no problem with abiding by the law. They also speak English and will assimilate very quickly. Yes, which is why these are kind of immigrants we want. Love said, if you want to see the Afrikaner community are law-abiding citizens, look at the crime stats in South Africa. You will see the difference. Well, you tell me what they are. Charles said, USA. I was saying that all day and twice on Sundays. Home of the brave and land of the free. Yeah, so a bunch of you are bringing up these race laws that they have. Freedom said, you can't strap up. We aren't ever issued licenses for firearms. Defending yourself isn't sufficient motivation for having a weapon denied by the government. So you Americans right here, this right here, that you can't defend yourself. They don't have a Second Amendment over in South Africa, so the government can pretty much do what they want, and there ain't damn thing you can do about it. Kevin says, South Africa is the most beautiful place on earth, and I believe that every single refugee does not want to leave, but we have a government that will eat the food out of your mouth, then rob you blind. Okay, so that's what I've been trying to figure out here. How is this happening? And are black people getting anything out of this? Grace said, wealth is not directionally proportionate to persecution. Yes, exactly. Charles said they have more suitcases than the usual refugees, but these are exceptional circumstances. Yeah. And again, number of suitcases you have really nothing to do with it, but people are trying to make it seem like that's a thing. All right, we got an update that one of the men in the refugee group of 60 already got a job and will start working. But if he got skills, he should. That should happen quickly. Grace said, we don't take handouts. We are too proud. We just want to live in peace and work hard for our families. Okay, well, we want you. We want immigrants like this. That's what we want here in the United States. So channel writer says, South Africa is practicing affirmative action in order to right the wrongs from apartheid era, but you sure don't have any issues with black South Africans being discriminated by Boers in their own country. I'm not quite sure what you're saying there. Durrett says, just the fact that they are encouraging the crowds to even take our children makes me sick to my stomach, which is crazy. I would get out of that country too. Kevin said, let's make sure our government treats us all equally instead of playing favorites based on race. Well, good luck. Depends on who's in charge, whether that happens or not. It just depends on who's in charge. That's what it comes down to. Let's see. I'm trying to get through as many of these as I can so I can get over to TikTok. All right. So it seems like some of you are talking to each other, so I'm not reading those ones. Grace said, you get what you vote for. So yes, that's my question. Who got voted in and how'd that happen? Jock Hoynes says, remember that these guys are not racist, but are out of a racist government that they voted to end the apartheid. Charlie said, the refugee program of Trump includes Afrikaner and minorities, so-called colors, which are the descendants of formerly known as Bozeman, and you're saying some things that I can't pronounce. Okay. So he voted to end apartheid in 1994. Okay. That number is unknown. So it seems like a lot of shout out to the people in South Africa who are over here on YouTube. They're giving me some good context. Too bad these comments will not stick when I'm done with the video because I'm using Rumble Studio. Kevin said, we have uneducated leaders put in power, not having any idea what's worked for the last 3,000 years in the world. Unfortunately, you get idiotic ideas and all. So how did they win? That's my question. How did they get voted in? Is what I'm asking those of you in South Africa. How did these people get voted in? Charles said, what are these detractors going to say when the next group includes Indians and coloreds? I don't know. But they're not going to say anything, probably. They'll probably be quiet about it. That's the whole point. I am reading you all's comments. Gray, I'm reading the comments right now. Gray said there are $35 billionaires in the USA from South Africa. We are built for the American dream. Well, good. Now, this is what we want to hear from people who want to come over here. That's what it is. Kevin says 7% of our population is looking after 93%. That's pretty much what I've heard. Kevin said we don't sit on our hands. All right, a couple more comments, then we'll jump over to TikTok. All right, let's see. I'm just trying to read some of these. Freedom said, thanks for speaking the truth. Hopefully you're talking to me. You're welcome. The government bought the land under the willing buyer, willing seller, but they have not yet redistributed it all because it doesn't suit their current narrative. So what are they doing with the money? What are they doing with that money? Oh, it's promotes like you would say Khoisan. Okay, so Khoisan is that group that they're talking about. Last land audit was in 2017. The ANC government will not do another one because it will not suit their claims of white land ownership. Oh, okay. So the government, sounds like y'all are saying the government is corrupt in South Africa. That's what it sounds like. That's what I'm surmising here, in that even the black people have a problem with the government and the white people got a problem with the government. So y'all got a problem coming up. Oh, so I can put it on the screen like this. If I didn't know I could do that. If I do this, I think I can do that. I don't know how I just did that. So Rumble Studio with YouTube comments. I haven't done this before. So Charles said the black South Africans majority live on government grants. Okay, so I can put the comments up so now y'all can see it. Ray said, I believe God has chosen us to help teach America and the West not to make the same mistakes as we made. Well, as long as we got Trump in, we're in good shape when it comes to the racial stuff, as far as I'm concerned. 1 of 40 said, you know numbers, none of the people, yet you judge them by the color of their skin. No, I'm not doing that. I hope you're not talking to me. Freedom said, how they get voted in is a much longer chat we can have in a space, not enough space here to type out. Okay, fair enough. I understand you. And I know you're pretty much right about that. So Barberton said they get voted in by killing their opponents. And I don't even think you're joking. I understand. Chandler said, didn't know all white people are innocent angels, known to make such claims, but also reverse bigotry. So nice try. Angels and assholes exist in all colors, including white ones. Okay, fair enough. But what does it have to do with this conversation? Koba said, communism is atheism. It will just never mix with Christian principles. SA government is godless. Well, it seems like none of you is happy with the South African government. That's what it sounds like. All right, let me go over to IG and then we'll get over to TikTok. OK Wire Concept says, thank you for your viewpoint. You're welcome. OK said, thank you for being a big brother to me, Dre. I'm a big fan of yours. Appreciate you. OK Wire Concept. Appreciate you for coming through as usual. All right, so let's go over here on TikTok. We got about 40 minutes left for commentary. And I'm just picking up where I can from the top of the comments. Kat said, just found you and I love your no BS. Well, I'm glad you love it. Me too. Thank you, Kat. I'm glad you're here. Leanne said, I have a bunch of Haitians in my neighborhood and they sought asylum and live here. So how do you feel about them? How are they doing? Jay said, what about the war-torn part? What about it? David Perry said, how many Sudanese have we flown to the country without anyone complaining? I don't know. Are you asking or you telling? Carla said, don't come here flying the flag of the country that you are leaving. Yeah, that shouldn't be happening. Yeah, that should not be happening. SHR said, nah, you ain't wrong, but you ain't right either. What do you mean? On which point? TikTok, this person's name is TikTok, said, don't need asylum if we had unity on the planet Earth, yet greed exists. Well, unity on the planet, TikTok, keep dreaming. Keep dreaming. Leanne said, we can't let everyone in. People don't realize how many impoverished people are in the world. There's no room. Yeah, basically, we don't have enough space. PR Pinup said, in general, you can't say poor people have no morals. I didn't say that. I said, if we're talking just optics alone, I'd rather bring in a rich person than a poor person, just on that alone, with no other information. Jaminko said, LMAO, you thought it was millions? Millions of what? You talking about the people who came in undocumented? It was millions. That's not thought. It was. That's not a guess. Let's see. Jackie sent, love you so much. Thank you, Jackie, for the gift. TikTok said, everywhere greed exists, people are suffering. The entire world needs asylum from greed. Okay, generally, I would agree with that point directionally. And the answer to that is it ain't happening. So Kentucky Boy said, I think he done it to help them, no other reason. Well, that's pretty much what asylum is. Ain't that the point of asylum? Jackie said, I'm not unwilling to lie. And then you said, sorry, huge typo. Yeah, that's a double negative, what you just did. Good morning, Nashville said, I'm white and conservative, and the best thing I've ever done is get rid of cable TV and the news. Yeah, you should have did that. I don't know when you did it. You should have did it before that. So whenever you did it, at least you got around to it. Jackie said, I'm unwilling to lie about who or what I stand for. We meaning my family has fought for our freedoms. Well, I respect that, Jackie. I respect hearing. I've been saying this since like 2017, that a lot of white Americans who had conservative views were afraid to let people know they had conservative views out loud and publicly because you were getting attacked just for announcing it. Trump winning in 2024 made it more safe again for people on that side to admit that they're on that side. And I feel that that's healthy for everyone. If you're a liberal, you should be able to admit that you're a liberal. And if you're conservative, you should be willing and able to admit that you're conservative. And there should be open dialogue and discourse, even if in disagreement, on both sides of the conversation. But when one side feels like they can't say anything because they're going to get attacked just for having a position, then that doesn't help anybody. Because even if you're on the liberal side and you hate MAGA and conservatives, but you don't hear anybody saying that they're MAGA or conservative, then you may be fooled into believing that everybody thinks the way that you think. And then it's only on election day when you get smacked in the face by reality twice in the last 10 years that you realize that there are other people who don't think the way you think. But since they're not saying anything, you think that something's wrong with them when actually they're just trying to protect themselves in general, maybe protect their careers, their jobs, their relationships, whereas you don't have that issue because it's cool to talk how you talk, but it's not cool to talk how they talk. So even if I don't agree with a side, I respect the fact that every side should feel comfortable saying that they're on a side if you happen to be on the side. Not everybody's on the side, but everyone should be able to say that they feel how they feel, especially in a land where the first Amendment of the Constitution is free speech. The PR pinup said it's from the NZ playbook. Is what Trump did. Yeah, I mean, equating anything that Trump does to the NZs is we've seen that movie already. We gotta do something better than that. Traditional all day says Bernie needs to retire. Bernie ain't going nowhere. Bernie ain't going nowhere. As long as he keeps getting elected, he's going to stay. What else is he going to do? If Bernie retires, what's he going to do? Seems like he still got pretty good energy. He's old, but seems like he got pretty good energy. You know what? I get happy when I see older guys with some energy, like Trump and Bernie Sanders, because I'm half these guys' age. But when I get to that age, hopefully I still got energy like them. So, and then I get concerned when I see somebody like Joe Biden. So I'm happy to see Bernie doing what he's doing. Just Holman works for Noam. That is pretty much true. That was said by Kerry. The PR pinup said, who are the biggest violators of immigration rules? The Democratic Party. You set me up for that. Easy question. This South Dakota. Yeah, that's where Noam is from, South Dakota. Games Over Dem said, why don't you talk about the people whose job they take over? Which people? Which people are you talking about? Why don't you just tell me who they are? Leanne said, look at New York. If you're not bilingual and speak Spanish, you can't get a job here. Well, certain parts of New York and certain jobs, that's true. I mean, it's pretty much how it works in South Florida as well. If you're going to work in South Florida, in certain places, you need to be able to speak certain languages or you can't work there. But there are places in South Florida where you need to speak the language of the R country, such as Sunny Isles Beach. You got to be able to speak the R country language if you're going to get a job there, because there's a lot of people from that area who speak that language there, and a lot of people don't even speak English. So, I mean, there's always different ways of looking at it. B, the Sunflower said, I can see that argument. Well, thank you. I don't know which one you're referring to, but I'm glad it made sense to you. The PR pinup said they are deporting people who have jobs and green cards. Well, it depends on why they got deported. Having a job does not mean you can't get deported. So that point doesn't matter. If you have a job but you're here illegally, you're still here illegally. You still should be deported. Not even you can be. You should be. If you're in another country, you got a job but you don't have proper documentation. What do? They let you stay? Oh, we got a job, so we got to let them stay. No, you got to go. You violated the rules. You got to leave. PR pinup. Somebody is living in your house and they violate the rules. Do you let them stay because they got a job, or do you kick them out? See, that concept sounds good when you're framing it one way, but when you frame the same thing another way, it sounds completely different, right? Games Over Dim said there's lots of reasons why you're not a politician. You damn right there's lots of reasons. I did a whole episode of my podcast explaining those reasons. So I know you're trying to be sarcastic, but I actually agree with you. There's a whole lot of reasons why I'm not a politician. One of them is, as a politician, you have to be nice enough, for lack of a better term, to tolerate people saying stupid shit right to your face, and you can't make them feel dumb because you might not win your next election. So let me see what we got over. I'm going to come back to TikTok. Over on YouTube, it's a lot of commentary on YouTube. I'm not going to be able to read all these comments. There's too many comments coming in. So y'all, YouTube's looking like TikTok today, which is a good thing. So Kevin said, if you ate today, you should be thankful to the farmer. Shout out to the farmers. I ate today. What did I eat today? I didn't really eat anything. I ate bananas. I had a protein shake. So shout out to the farmers for the bananas, the apples, and the protein shake. And I had a mandarin too. So shout out to the farmers who on the farms. All right. Games Over Them said they were offing people. It doesn't matter if they're black or white. The words people. Carrie said, dude, that is exactly what she said when asked. Okay, great. Well, that's the reason why she had to be appointed and she couldn't win an election, not a federal election. She was running to be the VP, right? Until that whole thing with the dog came out. So, Carrie, that's exactly what Kristi Noem said. Well, good. Shout out to Kristi Noem. Jackie said, I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's more about what we are going to add as an asset, not hard. That's correct. Exactly. Games Over Them said, this guy loves to listen to the self-talk Tony. I don't know what that means. Traditional said, that's right. You cannot just go into any country. Yes, almost every country in the world, you can't just go in. They checking your paperwork and they're going to tell you what you got to do. Servando said, in America, historically, you don't assimilate. You get thrown in reservations. What does that even mean? You talking about the Native Americans? Well, it's not because of assimilation. It's because they got their shit taken from them by people with bigger weapons. That's pretty much how it works everywhere in the world. Leanne said, look how much Spanish people have changed America. If you can't speak Spanish, no jobs. Depending on the type of job you have. Yeah, depending on the type of job you have, yes. But not every job is like that. PR Pinup said they're raiding restaurants and construction sites. These people not making things better. You talking about in America or in South Africa? Linda B, good morning. Jackie said, I think he is right. No matter his view politically, he is speaking truth. Which is my aim every day when I come on here. I'm not trying to persuade anybody to think the way that I think. I'm just telling you what I think, and I'm trying to bring up the points of every side of a conversation, and then I'm telling you what I think about those sides. Kiba Spoon said, our Constitution disagrees with you. All right, give me context. Traditional said, HOA, that's right. Yeah, I know. Jackie said, no shoes, no shirt, no service. Yes. D. King KC, that's not how it works for asylum seekers. About whether you're being persecuted. Okay, fair enough. Dan Buck said, is that not discrimination? Discrimination is good. Discrimination is not a bad thing. Discrimination means being discerning about what you allow and what you don't allow. Every one of you is discriminatory in your behavior. Every single one of you is. Again, discrimination sounds bad when it's framed a certain way, but when you actually think about what the word actually means, everybody discriminates. Everybody discriminates. If I'm walking down the street and some guy who looks like he just crawled out from under a rock and out of a cardboard box and he smells bad from 10 feet away, walks up to me and tries to shake my hand, I'm not going to shake his hand. I'm telling him, get the hell away from me, especially with my kid. I'm telling him, get the hell out of my face before you have a problem. Now, someone who's in a nice business suit and they smell good and they're smiling and they walk up to me and try to shake my hand, I'm going to stop and at least see what they got to say. I'm discriminating. All of you do that. So discrimination is not a bad thing. Sarah said, the land of the free, except for the people that live here. That's what people want. LOL. Yeah. Pincheronelia said, dating isn't immigration. Okay, so the metaphor, not the metaphor, but the Was it a metaphor? Let's just say the metaphor. The metaphor still stands. The comparison I made between the two still stands. I know dating isn't immigration, but that does not discredit the point that I made. Manchester said, no one vetted these people. Which people? Well, Heck said, I love the choosing a mate analogy. All right, so somebody loves the analogy, someone else tried to discredit the analogy. This is how it works. This is why I like having open discussion. You don't have to agree with me, but if you disagree with me, then bring some substance as to why you disagree with me. So a bunch of you are offering that you disagree, but you're not telling me exactly what the disagreement is. So that's what I'm looking for here, folks. Pincher said, not the definition of racism. Oh, yes, it is. Let's go do this again. Let's look at the definition of racism. This is straight out of Merriam-Webster Dictionary. Number one definition: a belief that race is a fundamental determinant of human traits and capacities, and that racial differences can produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. There it is, Merriam-Webster, number one definition. Now, when it comes to definitions, so any of you ever have these conversations with somebody who's going to try to talk circles around you, is understand that there are multiple definitions of words. Many words, there's definition number one, number two, number three, number four. There's a lot of different definitions that you can get of a word. Understand something that the number one definition of a word means the most oft used form of the term. That's what the number one definition is. Then there's number 2, 3, 4, and they're ranked in order of how often they are used in certain contexts. So the second definition of racism is a systemic oppression of a racial group to the social, economic, and political advantage of another, specifically something like white supremacy. This is right here in Merriam-Webster Dictionary, definition number 2. I'm going off of definition number 1, which is, again, what I just read. Fundamental determinant of human traits and capacities, and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. And if you are black, you can be racist based on that definition right there, because you believe your race is better, because you're claiming the moral high ground, because the white person's ancestors did bad things. Your ancestors did not do bad things. So that means you are better than them. You are superior based on your race. That is, by definition, racism. So yes, that is the definition. Michelle, good morning. 2 different Michelles. Michelle Hall, good morning. And Michelle with no last name, good morning. B the Sunflower said, I think anyone can be prejudiced, but not racist. Okay, so this is another one that, and B the Sunflower, this is not to attack you personally, but this is another one that black people have been taught. That, oh, well, what you just defined, Dre, there is prejudice, but it's not racism. According to what? The dictionary? Again, this is the Merriam-Webster Dictionary. I just read you the definition from the fucking dictionary. And again, I'm not talking to any of you in particular. All right, this is the definition of racism. All right, so to label it as prejudice, what does that make it better? Oh, so Dre, I'm not racist, I'm prejudiced. All right, what the hell is the difference? All right, so you're trying to claim this moral high ground, and this is what black people have been taught. So any of you come across some black people saying this bullshit, or any of you black people saying this bullshit, there's a few of you in these comments here. Oh, that's the definition of prejudice. Oh, so what, that makes it okay? All right, it's okay to be prejudiced, but it's not okay to be racist. All right, it's racism. All right, that's what it is. It's racism. By definition. I just gave you all the definition. Go argue with Merriam-Webster. All right, it's right there in the dictionary for you to read. You're going to look it up yourself. Reciprocal Terror said there are a lot of white people that think that oppressed groups can't be racist. People claiming oppression in the United States of America, you better not be a black American talking about oppression. How are you oppressed? So oppressed groups, I don't even like this term. Oppressed groups. It's traditionally oppressed groups. All right, that's bullshit. Black Americans, if you are black and you live in the United States of America right now, you are not oppressed. Now, what happened to your ancestors 100 or 200 years ago is a different conversation. You, personally, you are not oppressed. You are never a slave. You have not been oppressed. You have not been denied opportunities or access to anything. You got access to more of anything than 99% of people in the world. Miss me with that oppression bullshit. You are not oppressed if you're a black American. But a lot of black Americans want to believe that they're oppressed because it gives them, number one, an excuse for anything that you don't achieve. You can always fall back on racism. And number two, it gives you something to emotionally hold on to so that you always have something to get excited about based on race. And that fuel is continually fanned by these people who are called race hustlers. Their whole job is just keep you excited on anything involving race. And they're the ones that give black people. So y'all want to know why I go at race hustlers? Because race hustlers are the ones who came up with this concept of, oh, well, if you're black, you can't be racist. They're the ones who came up with that. Race hustlers came up with this whole thing. Well, Dre, that definition you just read out of the fucking dictionary of racism, that's not racism, that's prejudice. And this whole thing of, oh, well, we're traditionally oppressed. We've been marginalized. Our ancestors dealt with this. Your ancestors dealt with that. Race hustlers come up with all this shit, and then they teach it to black people who don't think, and don't think critically and just accept anything that they're told because it tethers to your emotions rather than to your logic. And then the race hustler gets more attention because every time I knock down some bullshit that a black person got from a race hustler, they go back to the race hustler, and the race hustler says, "Oh, Dre said that. Okay, well now next time say this." And then they just keep going back to the race hustler. And when you keep going back to the race hustler, you're giving them attention. With attention comes energy. With energy comes focus, and all of that leads to what? Money. That's why they're a race hustler, because there's money to be made by keeping black people stupid. There's money to be made by keeping black people dumb. And our entertainers do this. Our rappers do it. Race hustlers do it. And these days, even the academic system is doing it. But then when you come out and try to give black people some enrichment and get them out of their bullshit, they get mad at you. They get mad. I get black people getting mad at me because I'm telling them, stop listening to this idiot just because they're black and just because they have some followers on the internet or they made some money rapping does not mean you should listen to them when it comes to the way you conduct your life. You need to learn how to think for your fucking self. And they say, oh, well, you're just trying to serve the white people, or you must be a Trump supporter, or you're anti-black, or whatever bullshit that the race hustlers have taught them to say. And the thing is, the only difference between me, there are a bunch of black people who think the same thing that I'm thinking. Only difference between me and a lot of those other black folks is that I am willing to engage with these idiots, and I have the verbal and emotional and mental tools to handle their nonsense. Whereas a lot of people just don't want to engage with them, so they just stay quiet. I got a problem staying quiet. That's the reason why I'm not corporate. Anyway, continuing. Andrew Mike said, you have a misunderstanding of racism. Do I have a misunderstanding of reading, motherfucker? I just read it out the goddamn dictionary. What am I misunderstanding? Dolly Mac said, LMAO, Dre always spitting truth. Hillbilly, here you go, right here. Hillbilly B213 said, racism and prejudice is different. Yes, they are different. This is the definition of prejudice. Since again, I just gave y'all the whole playbook. All right, this is exactly what the race hustlers have taught these idiots. That all right, so now we just come up with a different way of deflecting. Prejudice. Definition of prejudice. Here we go. Straight out of dictionary, Merriam-Webster. Y'all see this, right? Prejudice say, somebody said, what's in his flask? This is water, sir. I drink water. I drink like 6 to 9 liters of water every single day. Prejudice is an irrational attitude of hostility directed against an individual, a group, a race, or their supposed characteristics. Also, an adverse opinion or leaning formed without just grounds or before sufficient knowledge, preconceived judgment or opinion, or an instance of such opinion or judgment. All right, so that's the definition of prejudice. So in many ways, prejudice and racism are the same thing. All right, they sound pretty similar to me. So again, racism, again, is a belief that race is a fundamental determinant of human traits and capacities, and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. I already explained exactly how a black person can be racist by claiming this traditional marginalization and traditional oppression by saying, a white person, you did bad stuff to me back in the day as white people. And as a black person, bad stuff happened to me at the hands of white people. That is a claim of moral superiority. And because of this, you owe me something. Because of this, I can talk shit about you. Because of this, it's not wrong for me to trash white people, but it's wrong for you to trash black people. That's claiming a moral superiority. That's exactly what it is. And that is based, again, a fundamental determinant of human traits. You as a white person, you didn't do it, but because you're white, that means you fundamentally are wrong. And because I'm black, that means I'm fundamentally right, or I'm fundamentally a victim. That is the definition of racism, straight out of the dictionary, ladies and gentlemen. Now, can you be racist and prejudiced at the same time? Yes. Definition of prejudice: an irrational attitude of hostility against another race based on their supposed characteristics. A lot of black people are prejudiced and they're racist. You're both. So it's not an either or. So it's a false binary when people say racism and prejudice are different, as if you can't be both at the same time. That's the way they're presenting it. Oh, well, what you define is prejudice. What I define is racism, but you're also prejudiced. It's kind of like somebody goes to a doctor and the doctor says, hey, you have high blood pressure. And they say, well, I want a second opinion. The doctor says, okay, you're also fat. All right, it's both. Okay. Now that we got that cleared up, you can go to Merriam-Webster if you want to disagree with the definition. Dizzy Devil said, I grew up in a predominantly black areas where I was jumped more than once for living in the hood. So I'm assuming, Dizzy, you are white. Now, what you're saying is anecdotal here, but okay, thank you for sharing it. The PR pinup said, black people can be biased, not racist. No systemic control. All right, so the PR pinup is repeating the nonsense that I just told you that race hustlers have fed to a whole bunch of black people. That if you're black, because you don't have systemic control, whatever the hell that means, you can't be racist. Bullshit. That's an excuse that black people have bought into so that you can keep being ignorant. And now you have an excuse that you can fall back on anytime somebody calls you out on your bullshit. You can try that shit when you're talking to a bunch of your stupid black friends. I'm not one of them. Nika said, get out vibes. Andrew White said, I'm out. All right, well, get out. But Heck said, there are whites who also say that blacks can't be racist. We need more dictionaries. But heck, no, we don't need more dictionaries. I agree with what you're saying, but the second half of it, your resolution is not going to work. And I'll explain this again. Okay. So first of all, the dictionary is a representation of the definition of words. In other words, a different form of a fact. That's what the dictionary is. It gives you the facts about what a word means. The problem with it, and this is one of the reasons why we're in the information war these days, is that a dictionary is giving you facts, and you cannot convince people against their emotions with facts. That is a losing strategy. We're at 70,000 likes on TikTok. Can we get to 80,000, please, everybody? 80,000 likes. Just tap the screen on TikTok. Even if you hate what I'm saying, tap the screen. Okay, so if you try to convince someone who is emotionally convinced of something with factual information, you're trying to get through with logic, you're going to fail. So, what Heck said, there are white people who believe black people can't be racist. Yes, these are white people who I put them in the same, not in the same group, but I say white people who call themselves allies of black people, and then you keep reinforcing stupid things that black people have been taught to accept, you are part of the fucking problem. So often these people I call them white liberals, but they don't have to be liberals. But as white people who see themselves as allies of black people, and therefore they just co-sign any stupid shit that a black person says, because the thing that they fear the most is not being logically inaccurate. What they fear is having a black person call them racist. So you feel like you got to agree with anything a black person says, and you can't push back, because as soon as you push back, the ignorant black people are just going to call you racist. All right, that's the problem a white person has. As soon as you try to allyship yourself with ignorant black people, now you put yourself in a catch-22 position, because now anything they say you have to agree with. And as soon as you push back on anything they say, because you bought into their emotions in the beginning, all they're going to do is default to the very thing they can use against you, which is calling you racist. And the thing that you fear the most is being called racist by a stupid black person. Now you got to agree with all their bullshit. And now here you are sounding stupid as a white person, and you can't go back because you trapped yourself in this position. This is why it's very difficult for a white person these days, because you have a binary. Either A, you go along with the dumb shit that black people are saying, and you got to go along with anything they come up with in the future, or B, you say, no, I'm not with that. I'm against that. I'm not racist. I don't dislike you because you're black, but at the same time, I'm not going to agree with the nonsense that you're saying just because you're black. And that's a difficult thing for a white person to language without getting attacked by a whole bunch of black people. Actually, it's impossible for you to say that without getting attacked. That is the plight of the white American these days. White people, did I explain that properly? Put a yes in the comments if I got that right. The plight of the white American these days is that you are put in this position where you have two choices that neither one of them is super comfortable. One is go along with the nonsense, and two, go against it. But there's a bunch of black people who don't want to hear your contextual explanation. They just say, are you with us or you're against us? And if you're against us, then you're racist. And they're just going to attack you. Even if your point makes complete logical sense, they're going to attack you just because you're white. For no other reason, and because you're white and you disagree with them. That's why they're going to attack you. I'm black and they attack me. Now, again, there's only so far they can go, because I can beat them back verbally with any bullshit they can come with. I can do better. But most people don't have that ability. So that's why most people just stay quiet, because they don't want to get into this shit. Because what do you gain from this? I gain from this because this is fun for me. This is like a sport. But for a lot of people, this is not a sport. So that's why I like engaging in this shit. That's the reason why I read these comments. It gives me ideas for content. That's the reason why I do this, by the way. I do these live streams and listen to you all's and read you all comments, because the things that I see in these comments lead to future articles, books, podcast episodes, videos, etc. I'm not doing this just for my health. Actually, I am doing it for my health because it's fun. But there's a business angle to this as well. So Kevin Zoer said, Ramaphosa is so corrupt. Who's Ramaphosa? Kevin said, teach them. Great job, LOL. Well, not everybody wants to be taught. That's the problem. Chandler said, man, don't you like my opinions or what? What do you mean? What opinions? I'm mostly reading TikTok right now. TikTok still has more comments than YouTube. YouTube was healthy today. Shout out to YouTube. But TikTok still has way more people and more comments. Right now, we got 123 people on TikTok, 20 people on TikTok, 5 people on Instagram. This is what's crazy when I do these live streams, is that Instagram, I'll be having like less than 10 people, but then on TikTok, I'll have 100, 200, 300 people. It's the exact same content. So Instagram, just for whatever reason, just doesn't like these angles. I don't know what it is, but whatever. My so-called life said the reverse racism disgusts me. Well, go get some pills and get a prescription for it because it ain't going away. So if it disgusts you, hopefully you can work through that disgust because it ain't going nowhere. Kevin said, judge a person by what they say and don't worry about pigment of skin. Yes, that's the Martin Luther King Jr. approach. All right, the problem with MLK's approach is that he's still dreaming. All right, that ain't happening. People judge books by their cover. That is what it is. That will always be true. That's just human nature. And it doesn't matter what color it is. This is what it is. So, OK Wire said, I support the white South Africans arriving here in the USA. Hopefully they enjoy their stay here. Well, I don't think it's not a stay. They're staying forever. They ain't going nowhere. This ain't a visit. This is not a hotel. This is not an Airbnb. They're coming and they ain't going nowhere. So it's not about them enjoying their stay. It is, but it ain't. It's about, are you contributing to what we have going on? If you're contributing, we want as many of those people as possible coming into this country. And the people who are taken away and not contributing, they got to go. All right, Christy Nome, Tom Homan, do your job. Get them out of here. I don't care what color they are. If you're white and you contribute, then come in. If you're black and you don't contribute, you got to go. Period. I told you all, I'm not in the black and white business. I'm in the green and gold business. Those of you who don't know what that means, it means this. When you win in the sports world, you get a, what's the medal called? When you come in first place in the Olympics, it's called a gold medal. Gold is what happens when you win. When you win and come in first place, you get gold. And when you make money and do business transactions, you get money. And in America, money is green. So I'm in the green and gold business. If you're white and you can help me make money and you can help me win, I want to work with you. All right. And if you're black and you can't help me make money and you can't help me win, why the fuck are you talking to me? All right. What? Because we both black? No, get the fuck out of my face. I'm in the green and gold business. I'm not in the black and white business. All right. That's the way I operate, in case any of you didn't know. And I think many of you can tell. Anyway, back to where I was. B said, how can the inferior race oppress the superior race? B, first of all, speak for yourself. You're inferior because you're black? Who taught you that? Who taught you that nonsense? Whoever taught you that, please go call them and get a refund on that bullshit that you were indoctrinated with. I do not consider a black person to be inferior to any race. The fact that you even said that appalls me. The inferior race oppresses superior race. First of all, you're not oppressed. And white people are not. Nobody in America is being oppressed. Today, 2025, nobody is oppressed. So again, where did you get this concept? Who taught you this? I'm seriously asking. I'm not even joking. Where did you get that? Who's the first person that said that to you? And to the point you heard it so often that you actually repeated it. The PR pinup said, this is truly sad to see or hear. If you were truly sad, you wouldn't be leaving comments on TikTok. You'd be talking to your therapist. Laney Mack said, are they hunted down and life taken or just treated poorly? Who are you talking about? Who's they? Kirsten said, never seen so many people rush to disprove they're not racist to whites when they're in fact. I'm not quite sure what you're referring to here. Prove that they're not racist to whites when they are in fact. Rush to disprove? Who are you talking about? You talking about black people? Manchester King said, current government is 35 years old. Which one? You talking about South Africa? Barbie said, you have a video of them saying, take the life of the white farmer. I've heard that. I've heard that that's what's happening over there. I have heard that. Barbie said they were trying to take the white farmer's land. Barbie, you must have came in late. We had a whole discussion breaking this all down. Barbie, yeah, you definitely came in late. You're saying things that have been discussed in detail this morning. Watch the replay. Let's see. Dally said, this is crazy. For those who don't see the similar theme here, need to wake up. Well, they ain't waking up. So you can say that, but it ain't going to happen. I lost my spot. Where was I? All right. I'm not going to get to all these comments here, but I'm going to get to as many as I can. Ladies and gentlemen, we got about 12 minutes left for commentary. Then we will wrap it up. Where was I? We got a lot of comments here today. All right. So if I missed your comment, it's nothing personal. I just can't see everything. Forever Evolving said, Elon and Melania were both here working illegally at one point. Okay. I'm not even verifying that that's true, but let's just say that that is true. Okay. And Richard Meyer said, people that deporting illegals is bad because who else is going to build houses? Where there is a demand, someone will supply. The first law of economics. PR pinup says he's reading comments from 30 minutes ago. Can't keep. It was impossible for me to keep up. It's too many comments. Richard said, I've been in construction my whole life. Plenty of people working legally. Yes, exactly. So where there is a demand, someone will supply. There are plenty of citizens in America who will gladly take a nice, good paying, honest work doing construction. Let's see. Matthew said everyone got a Concord. Everyone got Concord except Native Americans. What do you mean by that? Drew said, my generation grew up with, we don't give a shit what you think is what you do. What generation is that, Drew? Murphy the Mutt. Thank you. You're welcome. Let's see. Big Sam said, that's a systemic semantic dodge. That's a definition of personal racism and ignores systemic definition. I read the systemic definition. Number one definition is the most commonly used form of the word racism. Marky said, your responses keep me laughing in a good way. I'm happy to do so. Dally said, definitions are used based on what's convenient nowadays. Oh, well. Again, that's the reason why I explained it. There's a first definition, there's the second, third, fourth. There's a reason that that's the first definition. Big Sam said that definition makes racism inclusive and ignores the historical context. Well, it's a definition. I mean, again, go talk to Merriam-Webster. You want them to change it. What do you want me to do? I'm doing is reading the damn definition. The PR pinup said dictionaries are descriptive, not prescriptive, which means what? What exactly are you, when you say that, what point are you actually trying to make? I thought you were supposed to be truly sad. You're so sad you're still leaving comments on TikTok, PR pinup? It must not be that sad. Big Sam says, so Big Sam is a person who's been trained very well in race hustling. He says, racism requires a power dynamic as it states in your dictionary definition that you chose to ignore. All right, so Big Sam's been here a few times in my lives. He's clearly a trained race hustler. Big Sam, you should be teaching other race hustlers. I don't know if you're doing that yet. They call it training the trainer. You seem to have enough context and enough material that you should be teaching other race hustlers how to talk like you. Makes it a little bit more challenging. Not insurmountable, but a little bit more challenging. Cameron said, isn't racism just a kind of prejudice? Pretty much. It's like somebody saying there's a different definition between fruit and food. Yes, but every fruit is a food. So, I mean, what are you doing? What are we doing here? Laney Mack said, lack of self-awareness in 2025 makes me want to hurl. Truly blaming everyone for everything. Well, again, it's not even, I think some black people are lacking self-awareness, Laney Mack, but most of them are not. They know exactly what they're doing, but it's more convenient to do it that way than it is to take full accountability because that takes actual effort. Serenity and Love said, black people definitely can be racist. Of course they can be. PR Pinup said, redlining still exists. Racial medical bias still exists. Please. I'm not even saying that you're wrong, but okay. And I'm asking, and what's your point? So you're throwing out facts. Didn't I just explain to you all that facts don't matter? You're throwing out these facts, and I'm just assuming that you're telling the truth. So PR Pinup said, redlining and racial and medical bias still exists. Again, bias, everybody is biased. Everyone is biased. If I'm walking through the mall and a man walks up to me and tries to stop me to have a casual conversation, I'm biased enough as a heterosexual man, I'm probably not going to talk to him. I'm like, what do you want? You got about 10 seconds to get my attention, then I'm walking away or telling you to get out my face. If a really pretty woman walks up to me and tries to engage in conversation, I'll give her about 10 minutes to engage me in conversation. Why? Because I'm biased. So yeah, bias exists in everything. So just calling something biased, again, sounds good, but what exactly is your point? Barbie said, why do they have to pick clips of sentences of Trump and push them on the news to make him seem bad? Because that gets everybody's attention, Barbie. That's why they do it. If it bleeds, it leads. That's the way media works. That's literally their job. What you just described is literally what they're supposed to do. So that's not a bug, that's a feature. The good news is because we have social media, we can go talk about it. So people trash him and talk about it. Then people defend him and talk about it. And then everybody's talking. And that's what social media wants. That's the whole point of media is get everybody talking. Whatever they got to do to get people talking, they do it. That's the business model. Is just get people to talk. Iron Dome said, am I being, I think you mean biased, B-I-A-S-A-D. I think that's the word you mean. The answer is yes, I'm biased. I admit to being biased. That's the thing. People talk about bias as if it's some type of bad thing. I am biased. Okay, I'm biased. All right, if my child who's 2 years old is drowning in the pool and somebody else's kid who's 2 years old is also drowning in the pool, and I got to pick one, I'm picking my kid and your kid got to drown. I'm biased. Okay, so yes, I am biased, in case anybody didn't know. All right, Charles said, there is no inferior or superior race. That is true. Charles said, thanks for the chats, people. Great show. Dre, catch y'all later. All right, Charles, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. I will see you next time. Shout out to the people from South Africa who came into YouTube today. Al S. I think you're right. Middle schools and high schools wouldn't have you because you speak facts. Well, not necessarily because I speak facts, Al. The teachers speak facts too. It's just which facts. Al, it's not about the facts. It's about which facts are you speaking. That's what matters. And as a matter of fact, I can speak lies. If I speak lies that they like, they'll hire me. But I won't speak the lies that they like or the facts that they like. That's why they won't hire me. And because I got a track record of saying things that will piss people off. And the reason why I don't do a lot of work in bureaucratic organizations, because bureaucracies, in order to bring in somebody like me, they got to have a meeting with like 8 people. So if any one of those 8 people has ever heard or seen me say something that they don't like, they can nix the whole thing. So if I got to get 8 people to like me, then I'm pretty much fucked. But if I get one person to like me, then I'm good. That's the reason why I work with private businesses, small business owners, and individual proprietors. Because now I only got to get one person to agree with me, not 7. So that's just a strategic understanding of how business works. Now, I still do some work with some bureaucratic organizations, but that usually happens because the main point person who is making the whole thing happen, they personally have heard my stuff and they like it and they have enough clout within the organization to make it happen, even if some other people might have an objection. Generally speaking, I'm speaking directionally here. Big Sam said, we still deal with racial oppression in the form of over-policed neighborhoods, less opportunity. Big Sam, come on. That's what you came up with, really? You came here to say that? All right. Y'all just pulling anything out of the grab bag of black people excuses. He said, over-policed neighborhoods and less opportunity. Okay. Yes, we know. We know, Big Sam. Yes. We get it. Dolly said, I stay quiet because it's like talking to a brick wall. Yeah, for most people, that's a better idea. Carla said, you have the superpower to engage them. Yes, I do. And this is fun for me. Parker said, you're on fire this morning. Thank you. Catch me Monday morning. I'm going to be on fire again. Travis said, people bring up red lines if they're forced to pit redlining banks of the 99% of others. Yeah, I mean, people throw these things out. Again, it's the black victim grab bag is what I call it. They just pull anything out of the bag and just throw them all out there. Right? So Big Sam usually come with something with a little bit more substance than that last comment. You got to come with something better than that. B said, it's wrong around the board. Both races, their ancestors don't make them racist. Their actions do. Well, racism is not an activity. Racism is a way of thinking by definition. Barbie said they become what the Dems wanted them to be with clips of sentences Trump says. Well, that's what the media wants. And understand, Barbie, that the media responds to what people respond to. So the media just gives us more of what we ask for. So we can't blame either political side for that. They all are just playing the same game. So Big Sam says, racism requires a power dynamic. You chose to not read that. I read the first definition and the second definition, Big Sam. There are probably like 5 or 6 definitions. So I read the ones that are most commonly used. That's how the dictionary is designed. Number 1 definition is the one most common. Number 2, number 3, number 4, in order of how often is used. So your definition that there's a power dynamic, I'm not denying that exists, but is it the number 1 and number 2 definition? The answer is it's not. So again, go write Merriam-Webster if you like that to change. And if that becomes number 1 definition, then I'll read that one. But until then, forever hold your peace. Let's see, a couple more comments. So a bunch of you agree with what I said there. Great. Double yes. Kelly, good morning. PR Pinup said, LMAO simping for white approval. Yeah, so this is another one of the black victim grab bag. You're trying to get white approval. Well, PR Pinup, tell me how I'm trying to get white approval. What approval do I need from white people? First of all, I own my own business, so I have no white bosses. I answer to literally nobody, black or white, anywhere on this planet. So what approval am I looking for? Please explain to me how I'm looking for approval from anyone. Whereas you, I'm assuming that you're black, you probably answer to more white people than I do. So please tell me how I'm the one looking for white approval. Please explain that to me. I want any black person here to tell me how I'm looking for white approval. I would like to hear it. I need to know how I don't even know that I'm doing it, but if I am, please tell me how. Laney says, I'm raising my children to know everyone is made in his image and they are perfect and be kind. Yes, that's the best way to go about it. All right, a couple more comments, folks, then we'll go because we are at 10 o'clock. Kelly said, ignore IG and focus on TikTok. There ain't that many comments on IG. But I'm on IG. I still got more followers on IG than TikTok for now. But by the end of this year, that will not be the case. So right now Instagram, I'm at like 20,000, I think, followers, and on TikTok, I'm at like almost 16,000. I'll probably be at 16 by the end of this live. But TikTok is picking up quickly, so TikTok is going to surpass Instagram pretty quickly. I'll say within it depends on what happens in the news. If something big happens, especially around race or Trump, then that will draw a lot more people. Racial topics and Trump topics tend to draw the most people, and that increases my followers the most. I don't know if I'm hoping for that, but depending on what happens over the summer, I think by August, I'll probably have more followers on TikTok than I got on Instagram. But I just told y'all, Instagram, I'm talking the exact same content, but I got right now it's 5 people watching on Instagram and 107 on TikTok. So explain that. It's the exact same material. Serenity said the SA are getting welfare and freebies and needs to be a time frame for productivity. Well, we'll see. There needs to be a time frame for productivity of anyone who comes into the country. Mason said, "You're my favorite running back when you play for the Vikings." Oh, we hit 100K. Yes, shout out to the 100K. Thank you for my the moderators in here for helping me get to 100K. So, Marky Man, thank you. Nikki, Kelly. The thumb is cramping from hitting for 100K. Shout out to everybody helping me get to 100K. Carl, I see you in here. Kelly in here. Everybody, thank you. Ed said, if racism is a train of thought, what would the actions that follow that train of thought be named? Well, here's the challenge with that, Ed, is that you would have to come up with a way that you can prove an action is based on a certain thought. And that's not provable because that would require you to read the thoughts of another human being, which the last time I checked is scientifically impossible. So there's no way to authoritatively assert that a person did something based on a certain thought because you can't read another person's thoughts. You can only judge their actions. So that's another one. And again, this is not about you personally, Ed, but that's another one that Black people have come up with. That if you do a certain thing, that must mean that you were thinking a certain thing, which must mean that you're racist. The answer to that is nonsense because you don't know what another person is thinking. You can only judge a person's actions. You can judge their words. You cannot judge a person's thoughts because you don't know what they're thinking. There's no way to prove that. PR Pinup said, I'm not Black and I own my own business too. Okay, fine. Great. So tell me, my question to you is, how am I looking for white approval? I mean, you on here too. You're leaving comments. So how am I looking for white approval? Since you made the comment, now I'm going to ask you to hold me accountable and tell me how I'm looking for white approval. Since you said that's what I'm doing. I'm waiting for that explanation. So you responded to part of what I said, but you didn't respond to the other part. I'm curious as to why. Carla said, okay, got to go. Thank you, Carla. I appreciate you. B said, Trump and race draw you more followers because you are a Black man defending white supremacy. That's news. Where's the white supremacy? What is the white supremacy that I'm defending? What is this white supremacy? That's another one that Black people tried to use for a while. It didn't work too well, but people still throw it out there. What white supremacy am I defending? And again, what is white supremacy? Isn't white supremacy a way of thinking that white people are supreme to others? How do you know what a white person's thinking if you ain't white? How can you accuse someone of white supremacy? That doesn't make any sense. So I'm waiting on an answer for that one too. I'll wait for these answers, then we'll wrap this one up, everybody. So B said it would have to be a set of actions over a course of time. Even then, you can't say that it's racist based on the definition of the word. It depends on how you define the word. Now, you go to Ibram X. Kendi's definition, then he said he redefined the whole word racism, wrote a whole book about it. He built his whole career off of making up a definition of a word that is not aligned with what the dictionary says, and people bought into it, and it worked. So I understand why many of you are trying to come up with different ways to define racism, because Ibram X. Kendi did it, and he made himself a lot of money doing that. Even though the entire thesis of his career was based on an inaccurate definition of a word that is already clearly defined in the dictionary, but people accepted it and it worked for him. So I understand why other people are doing the same thing. I ain't mad at you. All right. Hustle was hustle. I don't knock nobody's hustle. All right. I ain't knocking nobody's hustle. I understand the game. So PR Pinup said, when you were telling white people to comment about their plight, that's not me looking for approval. That's me asking if they fucking agree with what I said. That's not looking for their approval. Are you joking? PR Pinup, come on. You got to do better than that. I was asking them if I got it right, because I was speaking for what I'm thinking a white person is thinking. Being that I'm not white, I wanted to verify by asking a white person, did I get it right? And a bunch of them said, yes, you got it right. So what are you talking about? I mean, this is one of the reasons why I do this, because I'm a what's the word that I'm looking for? to me, seeing how people completely lose all trains of logic when they hear something that emotionally disturbs them. And you're seeing a bunch of examples of it right here today. I didn't even read all the comments. It would have been more if I had time to read all of them. David Paul said, you don't need anyone's approval. You're taking care of business. Well, again, people only say that when they disagree with you. So PR Pinup, who was saying this, if I was saying stuff that she liked, guess what she would be saying? She'd be saying, man, you're great. You're smart. You're a genius. You're amazing. I'm glad I found you. I'm following you. She'd be saying all that. But since she disagrees with me, now, I got to be trying to get white people's approval. Right, of course. Sounds great. Anyway. So Tara said, nice suit today. Thank you, Tara. Ed said, examples, lynching, hate crimes, calling them out of their name, stereotyping, prejudice, etc. Okay, fine. If you want to call that racism, go ahead. I'm just giving you the definition, folks. I'm not here to convince. And hopefully none of you are trying to convince me. Steve-O said, good question. They just say anything and go against Trump. Yeah, don't we know that? B said, white supremacy doesn't make any sense. Straw man of the day, folks. It took us till after 10 o'clock to get to it, but there it is, a straw man of the day. That is not what I said. But you took something that I did say, rephrasing something that I didn't say, and then you're phrasing it as a question as if I need to defend it. That's not what I said. Leonard said, by protecting blatant racism and white supremacy of actions over time, regardless what you say. So if that's what I'm doing, then it matters what I say because that's the only thing you know about me. So Leonard, which one is it? Pick a side here. All right, I appreciate you, Cheseek 81. You got to go get some work done. Everybody has to. Mr. Ohio J says, clearly not defending white supremacism and giving his thoughts on certain things. Well, see, people call that defending white supremacy. This is what happens when people get emotionally unhinged. They just start throwing anything out there that makes them sound good. So anyway, PR said exactly, looking for their approval. I'm asking them, did I get it right? Is that looking for approval? Okay. If you want to frame it that way, fine. If that's the way you want to frame it. So B said, you're an agent of white supremacy. Okay. All right. Where's my paycheck? Being an agent is a job, right? Where my money at? B, please tell me where my money's at for being an agent of white supremacy. If there's no pay, then I'm quitting. All right. That's my thing. All right. Thanks for staying overtime on TikTok. Yes, I stayed overtime. I stayed overtime a little bit here today. So let's think about what our next topic is going to be. Our next topic, and this is all pending what happens over the weekend. So it might be something different than what I have planned. We might talk about this Trump versus Big Pharma. He's trying to lower the prices on Big Pharma. So we're going to see if that actually happens. Then we got to talk about Puff Daddy, a.k.a. Puffy, a.k.a. P. Diddy. And then we might talk about this alleged people saying that Derek Chauvin, the cop from Minneapolis, the George Floyd cop, he might get pardoned. So we might talk about this P. Diddy thing. We'll see. It depends on what happens over the weekend. The P. Diddy trial is ongoing. I haven't really gotten into it yet because it's going to take weeks and there's a lot of witnesses. But Cassie got cross-examined yesterday, so I got to hear about that. So we'll see. So, all right, I appreciate you all. I do these live streams Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern to 10 a.m. Eastern. So if you didn't know when I do these, it's 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern. We're overtime a little bit here today because there was a lot to discuss and a lot to be talked about. But if you like this one, come back on Monday. If you didn't like this one, come back on Monday. If you think I'm an agent for white supremacy and I'm trying to serve white people, come back on Monday. If you think I'm an agent for black supremacy and I'm trying to serve black people, come back on Monday. If you think I'm objective, logical, and I'm just getting the point across and stupid people tend to get emotionally unhinged and they say anything, then you go ahead and come back on Monday. But I will be back on Monday talking about a topic that is to be determined. We don't know what the topic is going to be yet. It's usually based off current events. Whatever's happening is a good thing when there's a bunch of things happening because then I get to pick and choose. It's a bad thing when nothing's happening because then I got to find a topic. But I think we're pretty good right now for topics over the next several days at least. I got several that I've been waiting on that I haven't got to yet just because other things bump it off the list. Oh, yeah. To get access to find out more about my coaching programs, my books, get on my email list, I got a free chat bot called Dre GPT. You want to get into the Dre GPT bot? I'll show it to you right here. It is right here, Dre GPT, as it is described. No filler, no filter, just straight up Dre. Inside action and strategy delivered instantly. That's the Dre GPT chatbot. Go to the link in my profile, and there's a link in there for you to get access to Dre GPT. That's my chatbot. That is through the Chat GPT platform. It's completely free. All you got to do is go to that link, and you'll get the Dre GPT. And go to the link in my profile. It's workonyourgame.live, and that'll show you all the stuff that we have going. You can learn more about working with me, what we're doing, our programs, our courses, our books, having me as your coach, et cetera, et cetera. All of that's in that link. I got to go. I got to go to the bathroom. Everybody have a great Friday and a great weekend. I will see you all Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern. Topic, we don't know. But I guess it'll probably be something about getting white people's approval. Everybody have a great weekend. We out of here.